and welcome to the 4Corners podcast. I'm Brad, joined as always by Matt and Chad. Gentlemen, how are you doing?
Doing good.
You guys had me worried you didn't talk there for a minute after last week.
Yeah, I should have. I was distracted. I should have been like, and just like wildly gesticulate while I act like I'm talking and just no sound. You're like, oh my god, it's happening again.
Kaiju movie stuff.
Well, the worst part for me was when it got pointed out. I actually had a bit of a emergency because there was a massive spider, like crawling down my wall, and I was like, well, I need to take care of this. And then that's when we found out there were issues. So we should be fine this week. And YouTube is delightful in that I could just cut that off and put it back with the missing audio taken out, which kind of upsets me because it mangled it, and that was like one of our best watched episodes. So yeah, fun times. So we have a big episode tonight because we are starting a really large project, the most ambitious one that we've ever done. We've done things like we did the Mega Powers, like as a contextual recap. We did the entire Dangerous Alliance. So this week we are starting a very long journey. We're going to be doing all of 1992 USWA television. So what our goal is going to be is we're going to try and do 2 episodes per show. We're not going to do this every week sequentially. Like, it'll come and go. My hope is that we can knock off about a month per month, doing 2 episodes at a time. That might get altered as, like, if time constraints, we might do an episode, and I imagine around the holidays we're going to drop off. But that is our big project right now. So this week we are doing the January 4th and January 11th, 1992 episodes. So I'm actually looking forward to this. And I think this started off with a bang, and we'll get to that. So this week we do have our mini topics, and we're going a little lighter this week. So we've discussed this first question a long time ago, probably within the first year, but this is, what is our favorite zoo animal / animals? And I'll start us off with, well, mine is giraffes, but also it's a friend of ours, Gervais. His favorite is, I believe, the red panda.
Red panda. Yeah, and they are super cute. They actually have some at the Washington D.C. Zoo. I've seen them a couple times. Once, like when they're kind of out in a little habitat, and they're super cute. I mean, I think they're kind of related to pandas, but
no, they're more they're closer to a raccoon than they're
okay. I was gonna say, like, they look basically like big fluffy raccoons, like a funny looking reddish fluffy raccoon, but they're adorable. Last time we went, which is at this point, it's been like a couple years, so it's been a while, but it was hot, so I think they had them in their little like inside enclosure, but they had him in like a glass thing where you could see them, and he's just almost just like napping. He's just like snoozing, and it's like adorable. You just want to. They're a wild animal. You never do this, obviously, but kind of just want to pet them, like give him a little, give him a little rub, a little tummy rub.
They have them at the Columbus Zoo, but they're really hit and miss on if you see them or not, because they have, like, at Columbus they have little air conditioned enclosures that they like to hide in. Sometimes you'll see them up in a tree, just kind of passed out, but
yeah. Favorite animal. Well, favorite zoo animal. I mean, it's cool to see like the tigers.
Yeah, they're fun.
Like, I like any of the big cats are fun. Like, December last year. Actually, take it back. It was November. It was Thanksgiving week. We went to San Antonio, where my wife is from and where my in-laws still live, and they started basically doing like I don't know if you guys have that. It's good around. Well, actually, they had a transition from that. Boo in the Zoo is like for Halloween, and they're actually going to have that in DC. We're debating doing that, but it's like expensive, so I don't know if we're going to do it. But because it's like Shad knows, like with you have little kids, like there's lots of money making ventures. It's like, oh, come do this thing for kids. Like, oh, it's like, oh, but it's also $30 a person. It's like, well,
Like, hey,
there's
guess
actually a lot
what?
of
We're gonna go get ice cream in our
our
costumes.
kids. Yeah,
Yeah,
are kids free? Oh no, kids aren't free. It's like great. There's like 4 of us. That's like over $100 now.
that's like COSI, which is like a big Columbus draw. It's like a big science center. You might have heard of it before, but so
Yeah.
they get you because it's like, oh hey, your kids are like $10 a piece. It's like great. Adults are $40. Like, God.
Yeah, like there you go. Anyway, I had my dates wrong. We went Thanksgiving, so it was actually they kind of pre-did it for Christmas. So they kind of had started decorating some stuff for Christmas. And in San Antonio, it's nowhere near as cold as it gets like in DC. Probably not as cold even as you guys. It's fairly temperate. It can during the winter get down lower, but low is like really low is like 30, and it usually doesn't really get more than like 40, and that's like the end of winter. Like doesn't really snow there or anything.
I don't
Now,
even
digging a
start
little-
putting on a real coat until it gets under 30 degrees here, so that should tell you
Yeah.
how cold Columbus can get.
So we did it one of the nights while we were there for Thanksgiving week, and did get a little chilly, but it was fun. And that's actually the San Antonio Zoo is actually really pretty cool. They have like a pretty big area for like the big cats. They have baboons, like elephants, all sorts of things. My wife's favorite animal is the elephant, period. And it's always fun to see elephants in there. They actually have a lot of zoos have this. It's not like a new concept. Then one area though where it's like kind of enclosed like walkways above, and that was where like they have like a couple jaguars, and the jaguars can like just walk through that. So you might be walking through that area, and all of a sudden you just look up and it's like, oh, it's like there's a jaguar just like pacing through there. It's kind of cool, but also kind of disconcerting. It's like, oh damn.
Like
There's a
if the
giant-
glass was not here, you would have already dove onto me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said giraffes are like your favorite animal or favorite zoo animal?
Favorite zoo animal because you usually get to feed them and they're fun and they're
Have
kind
you
of
done that?
weird. Yeah. Because they're always like, oh, be careful. They're really skittish. And the giraffe's like, give me my leaves.
Oh yeah, I've done it a couple times now. We actually did it at the San Antonio Zoo. I helped my daughter do it, and you have to pay to do it, which I guess I don't mind that because it's like
It's like a couple
goes towards
bucks.
feeding. Yeah, and it goes towards like supporting the zoo, helping the animals. But yeah, like the giraffes are like they just walk over and it's like just plop their face down. It's like feed me. It's like okay here, and you just hold the little leaves. that
Yeah,
they
and their tongues are real freaky feeling.
Yeah.
They're also like their tongues are like this long and
Yeah.
basically kind of like prehensile. So they just like it's almost like a
Yeah, you
like
have
a
to do
weird,
it.
like-
You have to do it like a certain way, like that you give it to them, but they still kind of get you.
yeah.
with their tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are cool animals but they are, I always find like seeing them in person, they're like ponderous because it's like, what the hell is this thing? Because it's ostensibly a mammal, but it looks like a goddamn dinosaur because it's all bony and weird face looking. It's all just like, and they're tall with long necks. And it's like, what the hell are you?
Yeah.
But they are cool to feed. And they seem kind of like indifferent, not really docile, but just like indifferent. They're just like mosey over, feed me, and then mosey off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll start with a story from when I was real little. I think I was 4 at the time, and we had gone to a zoo, and they had like a glass enclosed conference room kind of overlooking the tiger exhibit. And so I'm looking out the windows, and one of them is looking at us and comes over. I start backing up. I turn around, and another one has like up on its hind paws, and is chewing on the big black divider between the windows right behind me, which scared the absolute living hell out of me, which was honestly the correct reaction, because that's a predator going, can I get through here to that small, defenseless looking thing? But oddly enough, the things that I have had the most fun seeing in a captivity environment have been birds. And It's I guess it's partially a zoo, but it's really an animal rescue. If you go to Dollywood, they have the largest bald eagle rescue in the U.S. So you get an idea of seeing just how big they are and that sort of stuff. And they do an informative show during your time there. And so they've got a like a condor that while the people are talking, they'll fly back and forth between the gauntlets on the handlers and stuff. But the thing I had the most fun watching was they had this little African crow. I can't remember exactly what kind it was. It was named Tuck. And if you had donations, you took the money and you went up and you would lay it on the stage, and Tuck would hop over and get it and put it in the donation box. And he was smart, yeah.
Have you ever watched YouTube videos of crows solving puzzles? Like, they're insanely intelligent.
I haven't, but
smart.
I know how smart they are. It's just been, that was just a really cool experience for me. It's been a long time since I have been to a zoo proper.
Oh, and fun fact about bald eagles: if you hear a bald eagle sound in media, that's a red-tailed hawk, because a real eagle call is very wimpy sounding.
They whistle.
Yeah.
They don't cree. They whistle, and I mean they don't need to cree or anything. They're some of the biggest
and they're
bird
big
predators that exist. Yeah, their wingspans are more than 6. Their wingspans are like 6 feet 5 inches on average.
If you ever run into one in the wild, you're like, oh, I can see why some guy in like 1776 was like, this is our country's bird.
This bird is badass.
It is.
Yeah,
this is the national bird.
And
yeah,
if you're ever near Cincinnati and Kentucky, also, it's not a zoo, but the Newport Aquarium is awesome.
The Cincinnati Zoo is pretty cool also, but the Newport Aquarium is a really, really good aquarium.
Get a map if you're going in the Cincinnati Zoo, because it's kind of a little awkward to navigate.
It's
circular.
A loop.
Yeah.
So you'll find your way back around, but
you'll miss stuff though.
Got like spokes in the wheel that go into the middle.
Yeah, you'll miss stuff.
Speaking of aquariums, one of the better aquariums I've ever been to is Boston. And I think I've mentioned this before. They have, I hope it's still alive. It's been over a decade since I went, but they had a sea turtle there that would just swim. They have a giant tank, and you would see it like swimming through. But the sea turtle is, I swear to God, like it might as well be as big as a Volkswagen Bug. It's a giant. Like any one of us could literally just ride the back of it. Like that's how big it is. It's as big as a person. Well, bigger than a person, really. It's gigantic. I've never seen one this massive, and it's just like goes through. Nothing bothers it. I mean, it's built like a damn tank, but it's
there
fun.
is
it's
also
cool.
Another good aquarium I've been to. If you really get the hankering to go to Gatlinburg, is the Ripley's Believe It or Not Aquarium. There is really nice also.
The one in Myrtle Beach is nice, but it's too expensive.
Yeah, that's
like, it was fun, but it was like, this wasn't worth like $35 a person. I go to the zoo frequently because if you get like the family pass to a zoo, it pays for itself on the second visit, and then parking's free and everything. So if it's like, oh, it's Sunday, there's nothing to do, let's go to the zoo for a couple hours. We don't have to see everything because, we can just come back. So, and a lot of zoos, like the Columbus Zoo, a lot of places have reciprocal. So like if we went to like Cincinnati, it's half off, or if you go somewhere else, it's like half off or free. Like, so a zoo membership, if you don't have one, is worth the money.
Yeah.
Can I add an honorable mention for animals? I've never seen one in like a zoo, but I'm excited for personal reasons. An animal that I love deeply is the capybara.
Oh, Columbus has capybaras.
Right? Like, I don't know if this will. You can't see it like there.
No.
That I found. Anyway, Google capybara for those who don't know what it is. They are the largest rodents in the world, technically. They are dog-sized rodents, but they're adorable. And my wife found a place in San Antonio, Texas, that lets you go and pet a wide variety of different animals. We're going because for a while she's kind of weaned off it, but my daughter was like obsessed with like snakes. She's turning 5, and we're gonna go to San Antonio for Thanksgiving again this year. And because she was watching these like snake videos on YouTube, like my wife decided, oh well, we'll take you, like, and you can like actually like touch a snake. Now, there's like a million snakes in Texas. Like my wife took me to the rodeo once, and they had a little museum off to the side. And I went, and the only thing I really learned about Texas from this museum is that there's a lot of deadly poisonous snakes everywhere in Texas, apparently. We're not going to touch those. We would be touching like a python or something like that. I don't really have an interest. The whole reason I bring this up is because this place, they have capybaras, and you can pay to pet the capybara. And my wife is like, I'm going to do that for you. I'm going to do that for you. It's like a birthday present. And I'm like, yes, this is like a bucket list item. Like, this is one of the things I wanted to do in my lifetime, is to pet a capybara. Just chill with them. They're like the most chill animals on the planet.
Columbus has them.
So I'm happy. Who has the zoo has them at your place?
Yeah, they have them. They got them a couple years ago. They added them stingrays, and you can like feed the stingrays. And it's technically petting them, but you put like your fingers in, and they'll kind of like go by. And then they added sea lions, which sea lions are also awesome, except loud. Sea lions are very loud.
A couple of years ago, we went to San Diego, and there was just sea lions all across the beach. Don't get too close to them, obviously, because they won't. They can bite you. They don't think they really want to, but they'll like bark.
They're big.
They'll chase the hell out of you. Yeah, and they're big.
Yeah.
They'll chase the hell out of you, and you don't want that. But they're everywhere, and they're mostly just lazy. Just even if you get kind of near them, a lot of times they'll just be like, lift their head up and just like look at you, and then just like go back to sleep. But anyway, they are pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome to watch them swim. They just like dive through and are incredibly graceful.
I know Cincinnati used to have polar bears, and the polar bear enclosure had a pool for them to swim in, so you could see them up on the land here, or be down here on the bottom and see through the window of them swimming. And I remember, like, because I had been around like taxidermied polar bears before, but these full-size living ones, just the sheer sense of scale, you look at it and you're like, oh, that'd kill me deader than anything.
Yeah, the thing people...
That reaffirms my concern.
So the thing people don't realize is the most aggressive bear is the polar bear. So, like, because if you listen to, like, bear survival stuff, I got in this kick about bear maulings a while ago. So, the idea of playing dead doesn't work if the bear's trying to eat you. So, pretty much the idea is, like, a brown bear aren't, like, super aggressive. Grizzly bears are, but they're not necessarily trying to kill you. Like, most people survive bear maulings. But if a polar bear gets its paws on you, it's trying to eat you.
Yeah,
it's
you're
gonna
done.
Grizzly bears.
Black bears will typically run.
Yeah.
Yeah, and black bears are generally smaller.
I mean, they'd still fuck the shit out of you. If they decide
they're
to kill
bigger
you.
They're bigger than a dog and stronger than a dog, and most
there's still a couple
most
hundred.
large-sized dog. Yeah, most large-sized dog breeds, if they actually like attacked you, like it could do major damage. And bears are bigger than that, black bears. But grizzlies are dangerous in the sense that they're so goddamn big that if they actually did attack you, like you're gonna get grievously injured because just the size of them. Mm-hmm. And the problem with grizzly bears is that if they decide to eat you, they will start eating you, and you can't really do a lot about it because they're way stronger than you. And the problem is, like, they don't necessarily care about killing you. They just will start eating you. But yeah, polar bears are insanely violent. Like, they will eat each other sometimes. So yeah, if a polar bear attacks, like you need to run as fast as you can the opposite way because they're looking to eat you. It's not like they're just trying to bluff charge you to get you out of their territory. It's like they view you as a meal, and they're literally probably twice your size, like in every aspect.
Oh, more than that.
Like a wild black bear, I'd be more afraid of like a wild boar than I would be a black bear in general. People get real mad when you say that, but
boar would probably go for you versus a black bear. Its inclination would be to just kind of move away.
And it always causes an absolute shitstorm. But based on my experience, like if you're gonna go somewhere where a bear might attack you, take bear spray because it's more effective than a gun is. Like people get real testy about that, but no, like bear spray's better at like averting the attack than like a firearm is. Like your statistical probability of not being harmed with bear spray is like way better. Like a gun will still do its job, but like your success rate's way lower because, you know, bear spray is you know, a cloud, but you have to do it right because otherwise then they're like, ooh, this is tasty.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, you flavored the
problem
meat
with
for me.
using a firearm is you have to have really good shot placement, and most people are not that good a shot.
And you know, it's hard to aim when
adrenaline.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Is I've had to have that conversation with someone. One of the classes I have, the idea behind it is that it's a teamwork thing, but in it you're like, okay, you're in a small plane that crashed in, you know, Canada. It's cold. This is the stuff you have. How important are these things? And it's like, the gun's not very important. You're like, no, you can go hunting with it. I'm like, it is a 2-inch barrel 38. What are you going to shoot with it? Oh, I can shoot with it. I'm like, also, it is typically 0 degrees. Can you shoot that good when you're shaking with cold? I could do it. And normally I'm like, you know, whatever, but on that one it's like, no, you
can go a decent amount of time without food. Like water you can't, but you can.
Yeah, but the idea, shot placement under adrenaline is really hard unless you have had specialized training for it. So
and people also misjudge or don't, I guess, obviously because they don't run into them. But you really, people misjudge just how fast bears are.
Oh, they're real fast.
Video. There's a viral video that went out like a couple weeks ago, where it was. I'm sure they were probably like up in Alaska or the Pacific Northwest, because that's mostly where like grizzly bears are. And they were in like a river or something, and there's like some bears on the bank. And I think it was. I would guess, if I had to guess, the real story behind it was probably like there were cubs or younger bears on the coastline, and this was the mother like chasing off what she viewed as a threat. But that bear, they're going into water. Obviously it was relatively shallow because it was near the bank, whatever, but they were zooming by past it, and it's like, oh, a bear, grizzly bear. That adult bear took off after them, and they're in like a motorboat. Obviously motorboat's not going like 100 miles an hour, but they're going fast. Like, you can't swim fast enough to catch up with that the damn bear almost like got up even with them. Like, that's how fast they are. They're ridiculously fast, at least in short distances, but that's all they need. If you're within eyesight of them, they can clear that gap real quick, and that's not where you want to be.
I mean, they can chase down elk too, so
they're fast.
Okay, so our second question.
Hold on. Honorable mention: the real cocaine bear was a black bear. Yeah. Where was this again? Like, wasn't it in like
Georgia?
It was in Georgia.
Okay.
He's taxidermed.
I have met the real cocaine bear. It is taxidermied in the Kentucky for Kentucky Mall in Lexington, and it was the most, I think, the biggest thing that stood out for me in the ownership history of the cocaine bear was Waylon Jennings had the damn thing.
Oh. I really wanted you to say like Nicolas Cage, because he owns all sorts of weird stuff, or has at some point in his life.
I like having weird stuff, Gary.
No, that seems more like a Willie Nelson thing, like wanting the drugged out bear.
But Waylon Jennings ain't far off on that particular.
Okay, so this is kind of sort of a D&D question, but I kind of expanded it out. So this is really just, what is your preferred RPG class in like a game, tabletop? Like, what do you gravitate towards? Do you like to bash things, cast spells, or be a sneaky little jerk face?
So this has a difficult answer, because it just, the worst part is it depends. But if I can't figure out what else to play, I'm probably going to, for tabletop, I will probably play a cleric. But if I have my options, playing a charisma character in stuff like anytime I start a new Fallout game, I'm making a character who is smart and charismatic, because that will help me in far more than just Rudy Tooty point and shooty. So warlocks in D&D I like. I have played a fair, I like rogues too, but I've played a lot of them, and I kind of think that clerics, or at least the D&D variety of warlocks, fit better for me. Plus, you can have more fun with having a powerful entity that you have a relationship with is something that I think you can have a lot of fun with, depending on how and if your GM is down for working with you and that sort of stuff. Bards also.
Rogues are too fiddly for me for some reason. Like, I'm fine with like spells and stuff, but for some reason, like all the like rogue tactical stuff, for some reason I just don't enjoy having the options.
I'm sorry, Matt. Let me do this. I'll get out of your way. I'm playing in 2 games right now. One I'm a cleric. The other one is the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and I'm playing the rogue in the group. And it is the thing that's fascinating to me is we've got a fighter, and I don't actually have anything against fighters. If you have me play a fighter, I don't mind. It just frustrates me that I don't get you typically much in the way to give them, I don't get to give them much intelligence. We have a fighter, we have a wizard, we have a sorcerer, we have a druid, and then we have my rogue. And my rogue is the one that is the big spikes of damage kind of guy. So it is fun. I lean in on my skills, and then I just try and, depending on the edition, line up the sneak attacks. And I mean, you can rack some damage up with those. It is a nice dopamine hit.
I don't know. Sometimes being a big dumb swing things and things go die is fun too. Because that was my favorite character I ever played, was a barbarian, and I just had this big axe, and battle would start, and I'd just be in the middle, like murdering everything.
What were you gonna say, Matt?
About rogues, and I think that they can be good. You just have to kind of put in a lot of time and effort into that, and it's also like that's one of those things that you don't necessarily see the rewards of that until you start actually like trying to level and put effort into certain aspects. So I think they can be fun, but a lot of people, certainly myself included, it's like, you have the patience for all that build. Like,
It's
if you've done a lot with, you played a lot of other types of classes, and it's like, yeah, this would be fun, do something different. But I don't really gravitate towards that.
I wouldn't necessarily recommend like a rogue for like a first time D&D player. I think I'd steer them kind of away, because it'd be like, well, like you could, like, it's not like a bad beginner class, but like it rewards like system mastery. Like I think like for a new player in D&D, I would recommend like a fighter or like a straight up wizard. And wizard is counterintuitive.
Not a wizard.
Yeah.
No, if you want homework for your character and your build, that's a wizard, because you have to literally keep your own damn spell book, so you know what your stuff is. Oh,
but that's easy.
What you have prepared, what you don't have prepared, what the effects are, that sort of thing.
You just get them to buy the deck, like the card deck that has all the spells in it.
See, okay, so I have not played a lot of like role-playing stuff like Dungeons and Dragons, but I generally I like picking something that's a little more like balanced, but does have a focus on combat, or at least you can do some combat, while also having like enough like hit points or whatever that you won't just die outright. So I like fighters or like rangers, something like that, where it's like you can do some good stuff, but it's basic. I feel like that's like level 1. I would agree with you, Shad. I think wizards are more like, that's a level 2. It's like you got a little experience, now you can move on to wizards. I think something like rogue would be a little more like level 3, where it's like, okay, I've done these other stuff, now I'm a little more advanced in this. I can put effort into a class that's a little trickier.
They've gotten better about things not being like easy to kill, because I think it was I think they fixed it by second ed, but in first ed, like if you were a wizard, you could get killed by a kitten if it critted you.
You could
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? Hang on. I can
It-
go ahead and do this right here. Give me just a second.
He knows.
I'm going to sort this right now.
Because I think a wizard was like a D4 plus con, and then I think a kitten rolled a D4, didn't it? Or no, what did a kitten roll?
If you have wizards, and the hell of the thing with wizards is that the damn things have a wizard has, where's our proficiencies? This is the 3-5 DMG. Or
It's a D4 plus
3-5
con.
player's handbook. Yeah, it's D4. Maybe with a con. Well, you got there, Matt? It's blanking out. Oh, you got
3-5.
Is that 3-5 or 3-0?
It's 3-5.
Because the 3-0 looks like this, and this is what the 3-5 looks like.
No, this is 3-5. It says
Okay.
right there.
All right, we got it.
But you should if you're a wizard and if you're a wizard in D&D, con should be your secondary or your third trait that you're putting points into. So if you're a wizard, you should have 6 or 7 hit points to start with.
Depending on edition, because in second edition or in third and 3-5, you needed your intelligence up, you needed your dexterity to hit with ranged spell attacks, and you also needed your con for concentration checks. But yeah, a house cat could crit and, kill you outright at level 1. You're playing rocket tag. 5th edition says that also sorcerers had a D6 instead of a D4. But the problem with sorcerers is that
you really get screwed at the high end versus a wizard.
Not as much anymore, but the what you run into is if you don't make your proper spell choices, you don't unlearn and relearn spells. You're just stuck with whatever you got. So if you're like, I took this because I thought it was cool and it doesn't work the way you thought it did, you're sunk. Okay, yeah. In 5th edition, wizards get a D6 hit die. But in 5th edition, since your attack stat... damn it. Since your attack stat is your intelligence, you don't need a dexterity to make your attacks with, then it's intelligence, then constitution. So, 5th edition has problems. And so there's 5th edition and now there's 5th revised.
5th revised is trash, don't even...
Well, no.
Yes,
not necessarily.
It's trash. You're not allowed to have half races because that made the creators.
Well, that's dumb. That's problems too. But they also did a lot of stuff to fix a lot of races, or not a lot of class issues. Like your like monks aren't terrible and that sort of stuff. Like monks are good. Like a lot of stuff is a lot better than it used to be now. But, of course, you can't have an edition of D&D without people screwing stuff up. So, what I'm going to say is, if you're just getting into it, be the big mean thing, Hulk smash. My problem is that if you're playing, in 5th edition, if you're playing a champion fighter, you don't have any options in a fight except I attack, which can get real boring real quick, because your stats also only roll into... I attack. Like it's unlikely you're going to be smart or charismatic or anything like that. It's I attack. So I would say that if you're first timing it, play a fighter like in 5th edition, play a Psy Warrior fighter. Because then you can be tough and strong or dexterous and smart and have a few powers, kind of like a Jedi or something. You don't have a lot of powers, but you got a few, and then that way you have more options than just me, I'm dumb guy, hit thing with sharp object.
So what I always did, what I always did with new players, and what our group always did was, so if someone new came in and they, it was their first time, our approach would always be like, well, what do you want to do? Like, what kind of weapon do you want? Like, what do you want your character to do? And then we would build their character on that. So if they'd be like, hey, I want to be a shooty bow guy, we would work with that. Or if like, hey, I want to cast spells, okay, we can work with that. Or hey, I want to be like this. Like that's a good that would be my advice to you if you're doing it for the first time for your first character. have an idea of what you want to do, and then figure out how to make that work with a character. And usually, an experienced player will help you.
Yeah.
With that.
What were you going to say, Matt?
Well, did you look at the message I just sent?
Yeah. Nope. You were correct.
Now recording.
Oh, it's okay. I can just yank the audio off the video and just post that. It's not a big deal.
Here's the thing that happens in a lot of stuff.
I noticed like 20 minutes, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll just yank the audio off the video.
Okay, sorry,
Okay.
I just noticed it, and I'm like, ooh.
Well, see, the thing is, I can just there's sites that will let me just download the show's audio. Yeah.
So here's what I'm going to say is, especially if you're getting into weird concepts and D&D's not hitting it, or if you want simpler stuff exists. I played this with my 5 and 7-year-old hero kids, and they had a great time. It's simple rules, it's fun, it all comes down to how you run it. If you want a system, my opinion, if you want a system that'll do anything, it is classless. There are no classes to it, so you can put together whatever you want to with it. But I'm going to say Mutants and Masterminds 2nd Edition, because you can custom build about whatever you want. Do you want to be able to hit hard with something? Okay, you take the strike power. Do you want to be able to shoot from afar? You take the blast power, which is the strike power with the ranged add-on. You know, the building blocks to build whatever you want to are there. The most fun I've had playing Shadowrun was in Blades in the Dark, but that takes a stronger DM, and that's an entirely different game style.
Like with Mutants and Masterminds, I built, and it worked. I built pretty much like an anime style, like Gigantor with a like teenage boy controlling a robot, and we had a guy that he had like a sentient sword, so like all the stats were in the sword, and then if he didn't have the sword, he was just a regular dude. Like, so I mean, it's really flexible. I would say it's fairly easy to learn, and the True 20 combat system I think is pretty easy to understand. The only thing you got to be ready for if you're doing True 20, especially if you're gonna GM it for the first time, is depending on the way rolls go, your villain can get one shot. Like, you just got to deal with it. It's gonna happen. It's not a big deal.
Yes, you can well, the nice thing that has for in Mutants and Masterminds is you can apply villain points that says no, the villain is okay because this. Oh, by the way, you get a hero point because I just negated your thing for it. And then that way you can keep the game going in a way that's fun without it just being like, oh yeah, you did a thing and the villain's okay. Like, you don't feel cheated that way.
Yeah.
So
let's see. So we're gonna hit our main. Anyone got anything else on the whole RPG class thing?
Mm.
Okay.
I like there's a lot to be said for class games. There's also a lot to be said for classless games because, you know, you've got freedom to open things up. You just got to find the one that hits for you.
Yeah.
If you're getting into it, you're going to want to take some time and try it first and then start looking around and be like, hey, you know, what's working for me?
Yeah, because like personally for me, I don't like classless as much as I like class. And that's a complete preference thing for me. I just like having that like progression tree and like knowing what like I'm good at, that sort of stuff. Because the one thing I don't like, especially in like RPGs, and you get people that do it sometimes, and it drives me nuts. Where they're like, they have like a charisma stat of like 8, and they try to give this big speech. Like, I did that. Someone did that once, and they gave this eloquent speech. And they had like a charisma of 7. I'm like, okay, well, you give that speech, but your fly was down the whole time. Like, you know, people gotta act their character sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway,
so USWA 1992. So this is we're starting off in January, so our champions, as far as I can tell, so Kamala is our USWA Unified World Champion. Our
Kamala.
World Tag Team Champions are Spot and Spike, the Moondogs. Eric Embry is our Southern Champion, and I think that is it for what they had for champions at this point. So we're going to start off. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say, like, I am excited about this because USWA is something I saw like a little bit of when I was a kid, because for some reason, like, it was briefly aired in like syndication. In my area.
It got around a lot as a.
Yeah, but I didn't see like this year of USWA. I think it was either before or after, probably before. But I'm excited about this, and this year is, from what I've heard, is like a good year for USWA. Like there's some stuff that happens at least later in the year, but I will say, like, the stuff we saw with this, I actually liked a lot. So let's get into it.
I wanted to say, like, so the first thing right off the bat. So we've watched a lot of like startups in the 90s. We watched the GWF, the AWF, I think, and some other things, even like ECW and even Smoky Mountain to an extent. The one thing that stands out for me about the USWA is they have an experienced TV crew and TV people doing the announcing, and it really comes across in the quality of just like the way the TV show works. Like, it is a well-oiled machine. Like, they understand like how it should flow. They don't stay on things too long. They, the show is really upbeat. And it just like, versus like the GWF, which I like the USWA is just like on a different level.
It moves pacing. Well.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yes, no, you're exactly right, Chad. The pacing. Like, it flows perfectly.
The pacing was the biggest thing that I took away from watching this.
Like, when we were...
Nothing drags. And even if there's something you don't really care for, just hang out, because it's not going to be too long before it moves on. Yeah. There aren't 35-minute segments on one thing.
Well, remember, so one of our long ones is we did the whole GWF TV title tournament. But the thing that sucked is they kept doing a tournament recap, but it just got progressively longer between each episode, to the point where I think it was like 20 minutes, like towards the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. A 30-minute episode, and 20 minutes of it was recaps.
But they had a syndication deal, so they had things out for that.
Yeah, they did.
Like, why couldn't you just pay $500 or whatever? Maybe that was too much money back in like the early 90s. Pay a dude like $100, like a jobber, to go out there and have Big Bullet Busick go out there and like beat a jobber up for like 5 minutes. And that would have been better than like a 20-minute recap of the title tournament.
Yeah. But
I think I agree, like the production values on this were good. Now I can say that, and people think now, like, 2024 production values. It's like, no. You have to, this is like 92.
It's a TV studio with experienced TV people. They're not screwing shots up. They're not,
Yes. But I mean, the production, it's well shot, well directed. Cinematography of it is good.
The quality of the film is not the greatest, but that's just what there was for TV at the time.
It's pretty good for...
And it's still pretty good.
It's pretty good for that time period, for something that hasn't been, like, restored. So, there's one
you're
thing...
just not rolling in with, like... You're not rolling in with 1080p.
Yeah. So, there's one thing to keep in mind as we do these. So, that typically with Memphis, there's 2 feeds you get TV off of, and it can vary. So, there is the Memphis... there's the Memphis feed that is 90 minutes, and then there's the Louisville feed that's 60 minutes. So it usually is interchangeable.
Brad,
what?
Brad, I do need to take a moment, and as a Kentuckian, I do need to inform you that, to say it properly, it is not Louisville. It is Louisville.
You'll catch me saying either. You'll catch me saying either one, depending on how tired I'm. So the Louisville feed is 60 minutes, and it's interchangeable depending to fill things out.
Yeah.
'Cause I think a lot of these come from Lawler, and some come from Cornette, and some other sources. Like, that's why WWE doesn't have it, is because the rights of this are all screwed up.
Interesting.
Is it no one knows? So I think some of it does come from him, yeah. Because Cornette was an early like taper, so he probably would have been like when companies were starting to like people were starting to trade tapes around. Like Cornette, like Kenny Bolin were probably guys that were sending this out to people. So it probably a lot of it originated with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I mean, if they were making money on that back at the time, so much as it was just like getting the content out there.
No, you
'Cause there
were
is something-
what you usually were doing is like, okay, well, I have Memphis, so I'm gonna send you Memphis. You're gonna send me Mid South back. Stuff like that is kind of like what they did back in the day. Or I think guys had like, because I think like Meltzer, like the Observer started as like a tape trading thing, where it was just like, hey, this is the stuff I have. But that's kind of how I think a lot of it got out there. So yeah, so these can vary. These appeared, I think these were Memphis feeds though.
Mm.
So we're going to start off. So the 1-4 episode. So we start off, and Brian Christopher comes out, and it's going to be the New Kids, which is him and Tony Williams against Doug Masters and Tony Falk. Christopher is very upset because he is tired of being in a tag team, especially with Tony Williams. He thinks Tony Williams is a loser, and he's mad that Eddie Marlin still, who's the commissioner. And Eddie Marlin, FYI, is Jerry Jarrett's father-in-law and Jeff Jarrett's grandfather. So he's upset. And Eddie Marlin comes out, and I really like the segment. So Eddie Marlin just kind of like, look, man, you know, you're working your way up. Like, you need to do this the right way. Like, I like you. You work hard. You know, just do the match. Kind of do the match for me. And this is kind of like a thing with Eddie Marlin through all this. So he's the USWA commissioner, but I really like he has a very grandfatherly approach to it, which I think is really novel for a commissioner. And I thought this segment was really good. So Christopher agrees to do it. So we go to the match. Like I said, for an opening segment, I really liked this. I thought Eddie Marlin did like a really good, like his part of the promo was really good. I think it got me really invested in what they were doing. So we go to the match. It's your standard match, but they do a thing where I think it was Doug Masters, like Tony Williams is holding him, and he ducks, and Christopher hits Williams, which gets Williams pinned. So they lose the match. Then Christopher is pissed because it's obviously Tony Williams' fault that Christopher hit him and cost them the match.
The thing I liked about that spot is Christopher didn't just like throw a punch or a kick or run in or something. He hit the ropes, and I mean he was in a jumping clothesline. He was in the air when the dude moved. So it's not like he could have just, stopped in midair like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon or something. So you could look at it and go, dude might have a little bit of a point, right?
Yeah.
But it's not super cut and dry.
Yeah, but he did play it up, but he's a total just douchebag because he's blaming Tony Williams for, even though it was his mistake. And you could say well, he didn't mean to do it, but he was totally look at him. His shoulders are glued to the mat. Like he's always losing. It's like, well, you caused him to lose. Like y'all lost because of you. But he's such a total dirtbag with his big, thick, Kentucky accent. Well, not Kentucky, Tennessee accent.
Yeah.
Tennessee accent.
It's funny how much he toned that down for WWF because
yeah.
I actually like this version of him more. Like he's got a lot more personality to him than he did once he became the WWE Brian Christopher, and he kind of never lost that persona. I like this version of him because he's still obnoxious, but he's more obnoxious in I think a way that works for me. So they kind of get into an argument, and then Eddie Marlin comes out and he's like, we gotta get you guys this out of your system. So what we're gonna do is this week's Mid-South Coliseum show, you guys are going to box. There's not going to be any rounds. You're just going to box until one drops. And at first I was kind of that's kind of a weird thing to do. But then it sat with me a bit during the show. And then they were doing the countdown of the card. I'm I kind of like the idea because his approach is okay, I'm not going to have you guys wrestle. We're just going to put some boxing gloves on you and let you guys just beat each other up and see if you get it out of your system. And I kind of like the approach of doing that with them.
Yeah. I generally feel like boxing matches in wrestling are generally pretty horrible.
Yeah.
But we did later on get a clip
It looked
of the
pretty
next
good.
episode. We get a clip of it because it wasn't exactly like a boxing match. Like that's how it was styled, but it's more just like they put boxing gloves on two dudes. But it really was a situation where it's like you got gloves on and they were just like, just punt. It's to facilitate just beating the hell out of each other.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't like a round. It's like, 3 rounds. The round's ended. Go to your corner. It wasn't that. It was just like you guys got to fight it out, like Eddie Marlin said, until you drop. One of you drops.
Yeah.
And we'll get to like what we saw that. I will say this because you mentioned it. These are all studio shows, and people who are kind of used to how wrestling has been in the last like 20 years, where you get like marquee matchups on the show, you don't get that. It's a studio show. It's all about building towards the big matches, which happen at like the Mid-South Coliseum shows. So some of the stuff that you see, like this was setting up, you might have a boxing match between the two. You got clips of that in the second episode, but you didn't see that. This wasn't happening on this show.
No.
And you didn't see that in its entirety of the next show. It was happening at the big, you pay to go see the Mid-South Coliseum.
And
why wouldn't you, Brad?
Yes. They don't advertise it on this
free
one,
parking.
Yes, free parking.
No, they did. They actually did advertise this. They actually said
I thought they did on the second episode.
They did it on both.
Okay.
It's like, I guess for all the Coliseum shows, free parking. And it's
I'm such
oh my God, why wouldn't I?
I know. I was like, you're leaving money on the I know it popped me. I'm such an idiot. But I was like, you're leaving money on the table. So what this is like, so the idea of Memphis. So they run the Mid-South Coliseum every Monday. So this is a weekly territory. So things are going to move. And you're going to see that even between these episodes. I think, I'm guessing after next week, we won't see Tony Williams again, if I had to guess. But I don't know. Okay, so the next one...
Was he leaving the territory at that point?
That feels kind of like a write-off to me, the way they did it. But I don't know. I guess I'm wrong.
It's all... well, I don't think anything... I mean, I never heard of him going forward in like a wrestling career, but it did seem like if they were going to do something with him, it was like the perfect opportunity, because it's like you then build up to like a match with Brian Christopher and Tony Williams, and Tony Williams finally gets like Brian Christopher finally gets his comeuppance by Tony Williams. But
I think
I don't know.
I think Brian Christopher has like the Southern title by the end of like the middle of the year. So I think it's kind of just moving him on to bigger and better things. And like Tony Williams seemed fine though, so maybe they keep him around, but I don't think he doesn't strike me as a guy that moved up the card. Okay,
he seemed fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
so now we get to what I think is the best thing that was on the two shows. So we get a recap of the Moondogs versus Robert Fuller and Jeff Jarrett, like the tag feud. So this feud's very interesting to me. So there's a lot to say because they show a lot. So you get some brawls with these two teams in like the Mid-South Coliseum. You see some poor jobbers die a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then they injure Robert Fuller so the Moondogs have like a bone. And they pretty much injure Robert Fuller with it at one point. Now, what I did like is Robert Fuller in one of these recaps comes back from his injury and he's doing a promo, and their manager, Richard Lee, comes out and starts running his mouth. And what I love about this segment is like, if that happened now, even in AEW, like the face would sit there and take it like a bitch. And like Fuller takes about 1.5 seconds and just socks him in the face and drags him into the ring and starts beating him up until the Moondogs come out. And I'm like finally, like, especially from like WWE, and like AEW's not as bad, but they do it. But it's like finally like a face with some balls. Like, why would you listen to him? Like, just punch him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on one hand, I understand the thought process of not wanting to do that, because if you do that at the beginning, you can't build up to doing it to him later. Okay, fair enough. I think that it should be a thing that happens sometimes. Sometimes you should just turn around and cold cock the manager, and then turn back to the heel and just be like, now I'm coming for you. It's like, I'm not going to stand around and wait for something to happen.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you stand there and you're like, blah, 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 blah. Are you done talking yet? And then, because you're you could do it as selling that you don't take the manager seriously. But just to do all one way or the other, no, you need to mix that up some.
And I like so Robert Fuller is a face, I've seen it before, but it's a relative novelty. And I really like him as a face. Like, I'm used to him as a heel, but like face Robert Fuller, I was kind of like, wow, I'm kind of digging this Fuller Jarrett thing.
So they show clips. This whole segment was like clips of like obviously the beginnings of the feud and a little bit of the feud between Fuller and Jarrett against the Moondogs. And then they even showed some clips of the tag match at the Coliseum between Fuller and Jarrett and the Moondogs, which the clips they showed looked awesome. Like I want to see this show. Like I want to see the whole match from that like tag match. But this, I wrote in my notes like Jarrett and Fuller, especially Fuller, looked awesome. Fuller was awesome as a face. Like you appreciate again, like nowadays, it's like, yeah, he wasn't a bitch. It's like Richard Lee just starts like jaw jacking with them, like giving the business. Fuller just like punches him in the face and just like starts beating the shit out of him. And with the Moondogs, took it to the Moondogs. First off, everyone predominantly, if they remembers him as Colonel Robert Parker in WCW. But he was a worker before that. He's got size to him. The dude's probably like what? Legit like 6'3", 6'4".
You got to be careful. You've got to be careful with some of this terminology, Matt.
What's that?
You have to be careful when you say things like has size to him and stuff with Robert Fuller because he's notorious. He's notorious. There's a reason he's the happiest man in pro wrestling.
I'm not referring to that.
I was watching something.
Not girth.
I was watching something once and Kelly was complaining about his bulge and I'm like, what do you want him to do? Cut it off? Like there's a reason like for that.
Yeah. He also had a run in WWF as Tennessee Lee, managing Jeff Jarrett too. But the thing that struck me with that, and this is all off memory, so I could be faulty, but they would have him go out to the ring and announce Jarrett coming to the ring, so they weren't in the ring at the same time. And you look at the two of them and go, "Why is the short one the one that's wrestling?" Because I mean. There have been some people that have talked to me since I quit, and I'm like, look, dude, if you have me come back and be a manager, I'm gonna be bigger than damn near everybody on the card. I'm taller than everybody else on the card, and I don't want to undermine anybody like that.
Hey, I fixed that for you.
I know you put that out there, but it's also
I think who
I need to.
Was it J.R. Rock that gave the approval of my gimmick for you?
Yeah, he thought it was pretty funny, I think. Yeah, I don't remember if it was JR or Duke, but
it might have been
it's
Alex.
Also it might have been. It's one of those things where it's like that's a part of my life I need to leave behind because
you'd be fine for 6 months and then they'd talk you into doing a spot and then you do a little more and then a little more
and then all of a sudden I can't use my left arm.
Yeah.
That's
because I get it. It's like, okay, well, I can get physically involved. Like, well, I could take a bump, and I can see like I can see how it would be fine for a while, and then you'd start talking. You'd start giving yourself little allowances, and then it would just snowball.
Yeah, I just need to not.
Yeah,
and it's hard. God, it's so hard.
And you gotta. I mean, and that's the other thing. I think as a manager and. Some guys get that part wrong. If you're a manager, you have to be willing to eat shit at some point.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah,
you've got to take the punch. You've got to have your face mashed in the cake. You've got to run and scream from the face. You have to do all that. But
that's why Heenan was so good before he jacked his neck up because Heenan bumped big.
Yeah, my problem is that. If I've got a dude who swells up on me and he's 5'7" and I'm looking down at him, it's like we're really pushing it at that point.
Yeah, I mean Heenan was a bigger guy, but he worked with bigger.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. That's beside the point.
And so this is this is kind of hard nosed like Southern wrestling. The one thing I will comment on is Jeff Jarrett needs to stop trying to drop kick the Moondogs because he it did not go well every time. But there was one thing he did that I liked. I don't know which segment it was in, but there's one of the brawls where like he gets one of the Moondogs on top of the table. He just kind of grabs them by the hair and just like jumps off the table and smashes their head into the.
Yeah.
And
he did that more than once too.
And the poor announce table got beat up a couple times too. Because there's a point where Dave Brown's like, "Well, I don't know if this table's gonna hold up, but we'll try."
Yeah. Guys, was this whole segment like was this not awesome?
It was.
Like first off, for my having not really seen a lot of them in like USWA or in the indies, my exposure to the Moondogs was largely as just like jobbers in the WWF, like in the 80s. Like they'd pop up on like one of those like, you know, Maple Leaf Garden show or something where it's like one of the Moondogs is just as a jobber. Maybe they'd have
Spot.
like
It was usually Spot who's here, but the thing is when you watch those, like Spot always was a good worker because Spot, Moondog Spot who's here, it's Moondog Spot and Spike. So Spot, we have watched Spot on this show before because he is none other than Larry Latham, who teamed up with the Honky Tonk Man for the first Tupelo concession stand brawl. And, and I think that's why the Moondogs work is because they're not bad workers. Like you might think they are if you watch them, but if you watch like the way they sell, the way they time stuff, they're both very good workers.
They're good workers.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say they time their stuff well. Their style as the Moondogs is simple and straightforward. That's not saying it's easy or bad. It's simple and straightforward. They also, the thing that I loved every time they did a beatdown is it looked rough, but they were also taking care of the guys they were beating on. And the biggest indicator for me on that was watching how they did chair shots. They did not try and just murder somebody with a chair shot. They could have.
They didn't take
given what the gimmick they have.
I appreciated them as the Moondogs also, because ECW guys didn't do this, and I caught them doing it. If someone took a shot to the Moondogs' head, they put their hands up.
Yeah.
Like, there were no unprotected chair shots here.
And, you know, if they hit you with something, they are working it properly. Like, you might be taking some you might be taking some hard bumps. I shouldn't say nasty.
No, they were.
You might be taking some hard bumps, but they're not, they're
working you snug, but they're not, like, murdering you.
Yeah. And they're good at making it look rough.
Like,
I'm sorry, Matt, go ahead.
But that was the thing. They just murdered guys, and it's not fair to be like they were like the Road Warriors because Road Warriors are on a different level. But it was like there were dudes that they would go there and they would maul their opponents. And I don't know if it was like when you saw these clips or if it was the actual match they had later. But they went out there and maul guys, and both like the jobbers like bled. They like juiced.
Yeah.
You guys saw that, right? And it was like, and when I saw that, I'm like, holy shit! Like the jobbers like juiced, like they like bladed for the Moondogs, and it really got literally like in this segment and a little bit later, like for the 2 episodes we saw, the Moondogs here, I was like, the Moondogs are absolute monsters, and I'm down to see them in just a brawl with anyone, but especially like Jarrett and Fuller were 2 really good workers, so it's like that's going to be a hell of a match. Like I was like, if I could go back in time, I'm like, here's the money in my pocket. Like I want to go see I want to see them in the Mid-South, especially like in the second episode. It's like they're gonna have a no DQ match. Like I want to see it. Like, and that I bet you that match was damn good and far better than any of like the garbage crap you probably saw like in ECW back in the day.
Well, the thing is, I think because they are mindless brawlers, but they're good workers like at their core, which helps you like really brings a lot of it together. I think. Because you have to have those basics. I think that's why a guy like Necro Butcher always stood out, even though he was like a crazy deathmatch guy, is because he had like the basics down really well, which elevates like everything else you do. Versus being like a backyard guy.
The ability to understand the mechanics of being a wrestler and then saying my specialty is going to be I'm going to do hardcore stuff. I'm going to do tag stuff. That's you need to be able to understand all of that stuff from the baseline. And there's too many guys that just go in and I saw it on the indies far too much. They go in and they suck. And I'm like, well, no, I'm a hardcore guy. It's like, oh, if that's how they introduce themselves to me, I was just like, oh.
You get that with,
great.
And you get that though. You get that with other guys. Like, I want to do all the cool like moves, and it's like you can barely do a body slam. Let's take it slow, buddy.
If all they want to do is high spots and big recognizable moves, they don't understand how to put a match together. And like, I knew full well I didn't know how to put a match together early on, and I would be like, all right, so how are we doing this? And I would ask them. They're like, it's something you're supposed to learn. It's like, no. I'm asking, tell me.
Now, like Stardom, when they have students, like the early students when they're just facing each other, usually what they do is they have their trainer in there, but those matches typically don't have a logic, and usually Young Lions and New Japan against each other in the early matches, it's more like, okay, you have 5 minutes, just hit the stuff you're good at and fill the time. And I think there's a value to that early on because you're also getting kind of repetition in front of a crowd, and you can figure the other stuff out later. But like, I don't think that's what happens with some guys, because there's guys I've seen, they're trying to do all this fancy stuff and they can barely like hit a kick or like the basic stuff, and it's like, maybe you need to focus on what you're good at.
Oh yeah, we're gonna start this off. I'm gonna give you a pedigree. And it's just like, no, you're not. No. What do you mean you're not doing that? We're not starting this match with a finisher. And I'm sure as hell, if we're doing that, I'm sure as hell not the one taking it. So
it's like you're 5'2". Like, how are you even gonna give me a pedigree?
Well, I mean, the answer to that was you're not, because I'm not taking it. If you tried to hook that, then if you tried to hook me in for a pedigree in the first 5 minutes of the match, I'm just not letting you hook one of my arms, and I'm picking your ankle and pulling it out from under you. It's like, no, we're not doing this. It's no.
Okay, so then Fuller and Jarrett come out for a promo. They're pretty much talking about how they think this promo is kind of key because it changes next week. But so they're kind of talking about how the way to beat the Moondogs is to wrestle them, which is obviously a mistake, but we'll get there. So then our next match it's Fuller and Jarrett versus Jeff Gaylord and the Sandman. It is that Sandman, but he's not doing the Sandman gimmick yet. He is a surfer. And in early ECW has a surfer thing. So this is kind of just a standard match. But the funny part,
wrestling in a damn wetsuit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did that in ECW.
And yes, you're right. It is that Sandman. I did a double take, and I was like, it's him.
There's a really early ECW hardcore TV episode that you can watch where the Rockin' Rebel breaks his surfboard over his head, and it's hilarious. But so this is pretty short because then the Moondogs run out and start attacking them. Now, what I thought was really good character work here is like Jeff Gaylord's all pro them getting beat up and wants to get involved, and Sandman's like, no, this doesn't involve us. Let's get out of here, and they just walk away. They don't participate because it doesn't involve them. And then this just turns into a giant brawl. There's furniture. There's furniture destroyed. The poor announce table gets beaten up, and this is just bedlam.
Mm-hmm.
After like a whole huge segment of bedlam. So again, really good feud. Did you guys have any thoughts on this one?
Not anything beyond what you've already said.
I was totally sold on this feud in literally like the 20 minutes or so from between like the recaps and like the segments we saw. Like I was totally sold on it. And like I want to see how this feud started. I want to see like all the matches. Like I was down. And the funny thing is like I kind of suggested like back in like weeks ago, like in the show, I'm like, I've heard like 1992 USWA is really good. So that's kind of like what started as to partially going down this road of reviewing this. But I haven't seen it again, but I've read that this isn't even like the money feud from USWA in 1992. It's Moondogs versus Jerry Lawler, which I think is coming down the pike But even then, it's like, how is that better than this even? Because this is awesome for what I saw.
Yeah.
I'm more excited about this than I am a lot of crap that you see in like modern wrestling. It's like I give me this, give me like 3 months, 4 months of this as a main feud versus like the Bloodline. I don't care about the Bloodline.
Yeah.
This I'm all invested in. I want to see Moondogs and Jarrett Fuller in like a bloody feud.
Yeah.
Throwing tables around, all this. Like I'm down for it.
Also, fun fact: Jeff Gaylord got arrested for robbing the same bank twice. And he
was
also,
not a smart man.
He has a crime and sport episode. It's worth the watch because my favorite part. He died. I didn't realize he died, but so he decided at some point in his life he got hired to be a male stripper, and he talked about. He's like, yeah, like I decided to be a male stripper, so I painted myself green and called myself the Incredible Hulk, and I still laugh at that randomly. But so that's and he was one of Shawn Michaels' knights in that Survivor Series against
Survivor
Bret Hart.
Series. Yeah.
I think that's the only WWF he ever really did. Okay, so up next, we have Lawler coming out. So he won a tournament that he beat Jeff Gaylord in the final. And he talks about how they're doing different things. I like this segment because he's talking about different things they're doing to set their top 10 and get title shots. So it's going to be Lawler versus Kamala this Monday in the Coliseum. So that's that angle. I liked how they were setting logic up, and they were doing like, I guess, like, I don't remember how the match went, but it was some other thing they were doing to get like a number one contender. I think it was a battle royal or like a gauntlet or something that they were doing that Monday.
It was something like that, yeah. Which we saw clips of, some brief clips of in the second episode.
Yeah, and they do a top 10. I liked how they showed like how guys moved up and down. So then we go to I just have in my notes Moondogs killed jobbers because they did kill jobbers. Because I think Fatty
they killed jobbers.
I think Fatty got killed 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, he got murdered. And I think, well, maybe it was the second one. Like there was one where like where the announcer was just like, it was the next one. I'll hold my.
Eddie Marlin, I think, came out to shoo them away, but
yeah, but I think it was the next episode where they where the Moondogs just went all crazy.
Then we get a recap of Tony Falk and Tom Pritchard. So this is they're doing like, I think it's CJ and Tony Falk versus might be CJ and Doug Masters versus Tom Pritchard and Miss Texas, who is Jacqueline.
Jacqueline.
This features the first of what I think is a cringe trope from USWA, but is the faces spanking women, which just is cringe, and it happens. I don't want to keep a running count, but it was 3 between these 2 episodes. Let's see. So then Tony Falk comes out for a promo. There's more hilarity to that next week, because he comes out with the skeeziest of skeezy like managers, and poor Jeff Jarrett got AIDS.
Tony Falk's name kept tripping something in my head, and I couldn't figure out where it was coming from.
He wrestled Kurt Angle on the Kurt Angle episode, so we've seen him before.
Something else, and I don't know why.
I don't recall that, but I know he was like with Mid-South back in the day, but I mean, like, he was obviously like something of a somebody in USWA at this time, even if obviously like mid-card, but he struck me like kind of like jobberish, him and Doug Masters.
Yeah,
but, I mean, they were kind of like, I guess effectively they were like pushed mid-card talent. It's like if you were to view them in modern terms, it's like they're at least like the Butcher and the Blade, and I like Butcher a lot, but I mean, like, they're like a mid-card act. They lose more times than not, like, but they are names. They can go out there and have angles and stuff like that, I guess. But what struck your brain in particular about Tony Falk versus just like he seems
Just
familiar?
his name. His name, I could not figure out where I got it from. And I'm still trying to figure that out. Like, did it come out of one of Foley's books? Did it, like, where in the world did this come from? And I was also moving some bookshelves this past week and discovered I had forgotten I had more Foley's books than I thought I did, because I even have a copy of Countdown to Lockdown, which not a topic I would have expected, but you know. So the thing that I liked about Tony Falk in watching this is that he is very clearly a. I mean, his presentation makes him a chump, right? His ring gear is not super flattering. When he's not in his ring gear and he comes out to just talk or something like that, he's dressed himself where it looks like he's trying to dress up, but he's doing it wrong. And so, I appreciated that. He is a heel who definitely thinks way more of himself than he actually is.
I tried looking up who he trained. I think he might have trained a couple people.
Mm.
But no, I know the name too. But we'd see he was in one of the Kurt Angle matches in Power Pro. He and Doug Masters strike me. Both of them are like local guys that are super competent. Is how. Because, like, that's the way Doug Masters is. Like, Doug Masters, I don't think there's anything super remarkable about him, but he's a competent pro wrestler.
Mm. Yeah. Everybody on this that I saw was competent. It wasn't like we saw anybody on here who just sucked.
Yeah.
And
I agree with you.
That makes it different than some other territories we have watched.
Yeah, like Tony Falk strikes me as it wouldn't have fit in this time period, but if he was doing this gimmick today, he would strike me as someone that was trying to be a hipster but doing it wrong.
Yeah, well,
it's like he's doing like the old man version of it. This is what the kids are doing because it's hip.
Actually, you calling him a hipster would make a lot of sense. That if he was doing the full-on hipster thing and being obnoxious about it and talking himself up, but then also just getting absolutely whipped pillar to post, that would make perfect sense to me. So,
it's a good gimmick, whatever he's doing. Like, it's hard to describe it.
It works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, his attire before he removes it, he's dressed in like all black with the hat on. It's almost like he almost looks like a chauffeur. Like, I'm gonna drive you around, sir.
I was thinking he looked like a chimney sweep.
Like I said, he's dressed up, but he did it wrong. He still looks like a goof.
Yeah, he does.
But he also doesn't look like an utter and complete moron. He looks like a goof. So you're like, but as opposed to completely not taking him seriously. So he managed to thread that needle nicely.
Yeah. So then
Chad, I'm actually trying. I'm trying to look it up like in past shows we've done, and I'm not seeing it. But we have seen Tony Falk or something before, because I remember like looking it up. Like in the '80s, he did basically a Boy George gimmick called Boy Tony.
Oh yeah.
And he dressed like Boy George, and it was like short lived, I think, but he did that in like World Class.
Wow.
And I looked that up because we did something, and I looked Tony Falk up, and I saw that he did that. We didn't see him in that gimmick, but for something for the show, we saw him do that. So I'm like, what was that?
We watched him. He wrestled Kurt Angle on the Power Pro episode in one of his early matches. I think his first match. It might have been. Okay, so we're gonna go. It's the main event time. So this is gonna be Koko B, Ware, and so he is contracted the WWE, and they're doing this is the start of a talent talent exchange, and then this is the Candyman Reggie B. Fine, which I love the gimmick because it's kind of like a hokey local gimmick. because he gives like candy to the kids and stuff. I think it's a fun little. It's not. I mean, it's a dumb gimmick, but I think it's fine. It's a fun, goofy little gimmick for an undercard guy to have. So they're taking on the Shadow and the Scorpion, which are just two guys in like body condoms. Koko does a promo and he kind of sings it, which is a little weird, but it's okay. And
I thought that I'm watching this and he starts sing-songing through it, but he did it well enough that I thought it was going to annoy me, but he did it well enough it didn't, and I'm like, you know what? I'm catching the Koko Ware vibe now. Like I'm getting it.
I liked his message was just I don't care who has the world title, I'm coming for it and I'm going to win it, is kind of what his message was. So this is just a squash. He hits, I think, Scorpion with the Ghostbuster, gets the win. And that's all she wrote for this episode. And I thought this was like, for an introductory episode to a territory you don't know, I thought this was an excellent like first episode.
Yeah. It was excellent. And I almost, not that I disliked the second episode, I didn't, but this first one was better than the second episode. And it's almost like maybe they were somewhat self-aware. It's like, it's beginning of the new year, let's start off like strong.
Yeah.
Because if I had never seen this, and I had not really seen certainly this era of USWA, like I saw this first episode and I'm like, I'm actually like locked in. Like this is good stuff. Like I would absolutely start, like if I was contemporaneously like watching this at the time, and this is what I saw, I'd be like, I'm gonna start watching this promotion every week. Like I'm gonna see it. Like there was enough stuff to captivate me. The Moondogs Jarrett Fuller match, feud alone was like, this is fantastic. Like this is fascinating, and I want to see everything. So I would have kept coming back. Like, it was really well done. Like, and like we said at the beginning, well produced, like well done, like relatively high production values for the time, like solidly done.
You can tell experienced wrestling people are behind it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go to the next week. So this is the January 11th. 1992 episode of USWA Championship Wrestling. And okay, so we get a recap of the Christopher and Tony Williams boxing match / wrestling match. Christopher wins, kind of stomps him a bit for good measure, and then we kick to a Christopher promo, pretty much, calls Tony Williams a loser. And we get a personal favorite of mine, which popped me. We get Eric Embry coming out, congratulating him and saying, hey, if there's anything like I can do for you, like I'm here for you. So then we go to, it's Brian Christopher versus Bart Sawyer. And Eric Embry sits in his corner.
Yeah, because he said right before, he was like, like, you're mean, I'm gonna make you a little bit meaner, I'm gonna watch this, and I'm gonna like, he's gonna like second him and give him advice if he needed it. And which Sawyer? Is this Bart Sawyer any relation to?
No, I don't
Buzz
think
Sawyer?
So. No, there's a lot of Sawyers. I thought it was going to be Brett Sawyer, who is related. Then I was like, oh, this is Bart. There's too many B's.
So Brett Sawyer is the brother for Buzz Sawyer.
Yeah.
Now is this the Sawyer that fought Luthez that we saw?
No, that was Sawyer? Tony Sawyer, I think.
Oh wow! So there's.
But he was going.
Sawyer.
He was going by Buzzsaw Sawyer at the time when we watched that.
So we could have Sawyer tag with Sawyer against Sawyer and Sawyer, with a match officiated by Sawyer to Bad Company by Bad Company from Bad Company.
Yes, exactly.
I was wondering how many levels we could go on that.
Does Bart Sawyer come out to
Tom Sawyer by Rush?
So
mean, why? Today's Tom Sawyer, baby.
So this is actually, I actually thought this was a fun little match. There was a lot of energy to it. So pretty much the finish is, Eric Embry trips Bart Sawyer, which lets Brian Christopher get the win. And we have a little, I don't know, kind of an unofficial stable. We kind of got like Eric Embry, Tony Falk, Doug Masters, and Brian Christopher kind of kicking around. And Vectron appreciated our hypothetical of all the Sawyers and bad companies. So they have a little kind of heel stable grouping up here. I thought this was a good like opening segment. It followed up on last week really well. It kind of makes you want to know where they're going to go with Brian Christopher, and he's wrestling. Who was he wrestling on the Monday show? Was he? No, it wasn't Candyman, was it? I should have written down what the card was for the next Monday. No, he's wrestling a job guy, I think. But yeah, so that's the opening segment. Then we go to
Hey Brad.
Yeah.
Before you get to that, I actually had looked it up on Cage Match. He had like another match kind of like contemporaneously with Tony Williams. And then they would like face each other a couple more times in 1992. But yeah, like they had like one other match that was kind of like close to this, but Brian Christopher won that. So
yeah.
And I guess Tony Williams like stuck around in USWA, but he didn't really have like much of stuff. Like he occasionally would win, but he didn't do much. So
just a job
as a guy like
kind
of, it's like if they were in like looking at modern, a lot of like experience that we have with wrestling, it's like, oh, are they building to like, Tony Williams becoming like a solid mid card guy, like face, whatever? Like no, like he was a vessel essentially to get Brian Christopher turning as a heel and getting him some wins, and that was pretty much it. Like Tony Williams didn't really do much.
Yeah. So then we go to it's Doug Masters promo, and they're gonna have a lumberjack strap match with he's gonna have a lumberjack strap match with Bart Sawyer on this Monday show. Again, solid promo. I don't really know who Doug Masters is. Like I said for the first episode, he just seems like a local guy that's competent. I don't mean that as a bad thing. He just seems like he's a competent dude. He's been fine on the two shows we watched. Then we go to, we get the Moondogs murder jobbers. Literally, this one is they run out, attack the jobbers, and they do like the kind of the demolition finish here, where one guy puts him in a backbreaker, and then they do like the elbow drop, and they finish this in like 5 seconds, and then beat them to within an inch of their life until Eddie Marlin gets them to go away.
But this was the one that wasn't this the one that that Corey Macklin was like, because Doug Brown was off.
Yeah.
And it was just Corey Macklin doing announce duties, and Corey Macklin was just like going crazy. He's like, get them out of here, like, because they're just brutalizing the jobbers, and Eddie Marlin had to come in there and like get them to run off because the Moondogs and Richard Lee they were just like beating the hell out of these poor jobbers, just like brutalizing them,
just
murdering. And that's like, again, they maybe had, again, I saw my experience with the Moondogs, or Moondog Spot at least, was like they're gonna go out like mid 80s. It's like you're gonna see like a 15-minute boring nothing match where Moondog Spot is in the lower card, and he's gonna have like a 15-20-minute match with like Salvatore Balomo or Jorge Luis Rivera. It's gonna go out there, and it's gonna be like, oh, this is not winning me over, guys. But they were awesome in this, like awesome. Like I would have taken these. I would have wanted to see like this version of the Moondogs versus any of the top tag teams at the time in 1992, and it's like that could have been like a fantastic match. Like you could have put them. This is 92. Like think of like the teams that were in like, or at least the talent that was in like WCW at the time. It's like you could have had like obviously they were all heels, but Moondogs versus like Arn Anderson, Bobby Eaton.
I was gonna say Barry Windham and Dustin
that would have been a hell of a match. Oh my God, that would have been a hell of a match. That would have been like a brutal, like fantastic match because the Moondogs could work.
Now, what I like, so they do a recap of the brawl from Monday with the Moondogs and Fuller Jarrett. Obviously, the Moondogs retained. Now, what I like here, so both teams have a chair that pretty much has like, I think one says "Rip Moondogs." I don't remember what the Richard Lee one said, but they both have a share that's like marked with the doom of the other one. And now last week, Fuller and Jarrett were saying like, well, we're gonna wrestle them because that's what they're weak at, and this week they're kind of like, well, wrestling's not gonna work. We're just gonna have to meet them on their level for us to come out on top. And I think this week is like gonna be like a no DQ match.
Yeah, they're setting up for it's gonna be a no DQ match at the Coliseum. And didn't wasn't it this? It was this one that Jarrett and Fuller had like the bone, the Moondog's bone.
Yeah, they stole the bone.
They stole the bone, so they had like their deadly weapon with them.
So
but yeah, this for a show that actually happened, 32 years ago. If this was today, I would have been like, I want to go see the show. Like, where do I give you my money so I can go watch Moondogs versus Jarrett Fuller in a no DQ match? Like this, they sold this fantastically.
Yeah, and we get the rundown of the show for this week, which again, free parking, and no price increase. I don't know why I was saying that, but the free parking popped me, obviously. And then we get
you have to go.
Yeah,
free parking. Like you're leaving money on the table. Like.
So then we get kind of like they do this a lot where they bring out like a group of faces or heels and they kind of all run down their match. So we get Bart Sawyer, Jeff Jarrett, and Dirty White Boy coming out to all do like the rundowns on their matches. They're mostly talking about the strap match because they all have their weightlifter belts and they're talking about that. Was Miss Texas with them? Or no, yeah, I think Miss Texas was out there too. I might have forgot to put her on there. My takeaway from this, and I've said it before, but Dirty White Boy is an underrated talker.
This was a great promo. Like, it was fantastic. Like, so you did see clips of like the Battle Royal or the Gauntlet, whatever it was. And
yeah, we get that after this one because there's a second.
Okay.
Because they're.
Oh, you're right. I'm jumping ahead.
Because we'll get to that because I like that. That angle and segment I really like. But so this is just setting up some stuff. But then let's see. I have it all written down. Okay, so then we get. After this, we have Eric Emery defeats TD Steele. I had a problem with TD Steele as a jobber because I'm like, this guy's way too put together to be a jobber. Because, he wasn't like disheveled. Like, he had like a decent body to him. Like, why is this guy jobbing? Like, he'd probably do something with him.
Yeah, I'm kind of used to jobbers being a little like slovenly. Like, jobbers because like they're not put together. They just look goofy.
You dress down a little bit as a jobber because you don't want to. Like, if you're going to be well and put together, you'd kind of like to shine for it. But
and he had his name on his like singlet, which I thought was kind of a mistake for a jobber. Now this is a little bit longer than normal, but this is kind of like why I like Eric Embry because. Like, he really emotes well. I don't know if Shad noticed that. Like, when he was doing all of his heel stuff, like, his facial expressions and his healing, like, was really good in this. Yeah. Like, he's just kind of an obnoxious douche.
Yeah. He has found a way to kind of make sure that there's hardly anything likable out of him. It's not like you look at him and go, oh, he's, well, he's got a good look. Oh, he's a likable guy. No, neither one. He is, he's even if he's not like the most slimy or disreputable, there's not really anything likable about him.
His facial expressions are like really, like the way he like rolls his eyes and like kind of the disdain he has for stuff. He's a good promo too. Like, I actually really like Eric Embry. He would never get a chance today because he's not like the modern ideal of what a wrestler looks like, as in he's too short. But he's a quality. He knows how to heal.
You know what? He might. It's maybe not with a real high ceiling, but I mean, it's. Oh God! Now I'm gonna screw up the name. Like J.D. Drake or the guy. They used to be Bear Country. Who are they now?
Oh, I don't know what they're called now.
They do the sauce gimmick and
they're
all
like
that.
Iron Country or something.
There it
Iron
is.
Savage.
Iron Savages. That's right. Like they're and Otis, same kind of thing. They're not like. They're not cut or anything, but neither are the Moondogs. And the thing that strikes me about watching the Moondogs is, in your life, the people you meet that are the most likely to be the toughest guys you've ever met are not the dudes that are like cut and defined. It's the guys that have like working man muscle on them, but then they'd be like the Moondogs. It's like, if you went into if there was something that went down in a bar and there was some dude who looks like he went to the gym every day, threw down, and you turn around and there's some farm boy there he's a big old dude, but you look at him, you're like, that gym rat's going to get ripped in half. It's the same kind of thing. That's part of what makes the Moondogs scary, too.
You see it in UFC all the time. You got, like, the guys that have, like, their obvious, like, loose skin that was their belly fat before they had to cut weight, like, hanging over their trunks as they beat the ever-loving piss out of someone. Like, I mean, that illusion went away a long time ago, and I wish wrestling would kind of move on a bit from it, but,
I mean, I understand that there's an aesthetic sense to it, but you don't need... If you're in good shape and you look strong enough, then I personally think that's enough. You don't need abs, okay?
Yeah.
If someone who has abs, that does not tell me that they're a good athlete. That tells me that they're really good at regulating their diet. That's what that tells me.
What's funny, and I forgot to bring it up last week, is remember how I compared the sheep herders kind of to the Briscoes?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it was on one of the shows we watched. It might have been, but the sheep herders on one of them cut a not aesthetically pleasing promo, kind of like the Briscoes did, and I about lost my crap. And I forgot to mention that last week. It just popped in my head. Okay, so now we get to the angle I really like. So this is Dirty White Boy promo. So what happened the week during the Battle Royal or whatever it was, the Gauntlet. So it's the two of them with was it Jeff Gaylord that was left? I think it was Jeff Gaylord. So it's the two of them.
It was Jeff Gaylord.
So they're double teaming on them, and Coco's like, go on, pin him. And so Dirty White Boy pins him, and then Koko just rolls him up and beats him afterwards. And I laughed so hard. So I'm like, oh, that is a great
It was smart. It was absolutely brilliant.
But what I like about this is so Dirty White Boy is like, I'm really upset. Like, I was really, steamed about what Koko did. So I went and found him backstage, and I said, hey, I didn't like that you did that. And Coco's like, okay, let's go talk to Eddie Marlin and get a match done. And I was like, you mean they handled this like adults?
Yeah, it actually was. It was like almost like shocking in how like well thought out and rational it was. It's like Dirty White Boy was like screwed over by he got outsmarted by Koko.
Oh,
and Koko was like, oh,
it was so brilliant. It was so brilliant,
yeah.
like because just the way he outthought him, like he was like 3 steps ahead.
Yep, and then he took umbrage with it as he would. I mean, he got screwed over, and he confronts Koko in the backstage area apparently, and Koko's like, all right, let's go set up a match. Like that, he wasn't just like, yeah, whatever. He was like, all right, let's settle in the ring, and it was like, wow, that's actually like logical. That makes perfect sense. And you're getting a match. You've in literally like, I guess the finish of this match and this one promo, you set up a match for all the people who like whine nowadays. It's like, oh, there's no build to this. It's like there was a build to this match in about 30 seconds of time.
Yeah.
Between two events,
like
the match finish and this promo. Yeah.
20-second clip, 30-second promo. It's set, and this is also a number one contender match. So the winner of this gets a shot at the title.
Yeah. And to go back, like I agree with you. Like Dirty White Boy was a much better promo than I gave him credit for. I haven't seen a ton of his stuff, but he was good.
I still love his Central Park one where he pulls out the Desert Eagle.
Oh yeah.
And like when him running down like Tracy Smothers, where he's like breaking all that stuff, and he has like the melon because he has a melon head, and the flower because he's like a pasty white boy, and like the beer because Tracy Smothers. But I love the we're in Central Park, and it's like, no, you're not. You're in the backwoods of someone's backyard. And he's like, we've got muggers, and he pulls that big ass gun out. Yeah. Oh, I love him so much. And the Ron Wright handing over his chain and it's in a Walmart bag.
The thing that, like, I absolutely appreciate that Dirty White Boy is good at wrestling stuff. I don't know if I would have leaned in on him as a top guy in Smoky Mountain, but it may just have been one of those cases of
It's what
you go with who you got.
There's a great segment they did with him. It was like Dutch Mantel had like a segment, and he went to where Dirty White Boy lives, and he was living in like a busted down school bus in like a junkyard. That he just comes out of. It's hilarious. I need to find it and show you guys. It's a good segment. I think though, like regionally, like where they were working, he had a lot of history, and I think if you're like a small time promotion trying to make it, like you kind of work with what you got, and you could do a lot worse than the Dirty White Boy.
This was a good promo. One thing I wrote down in my notes, like that I liked about this, is that his promo against Koko was good. He goes like, I didn't get the name Dirty White Boy, obviously. I didn't get the name helping old ladies cross the street. I got it beating people up. And it's like, that's it's almost corny, but it's also like, that's actually works perfectly with your gimmick. Like, you're kind of just a dirtbag, but you're upset with Koko. You're gonna have this match. You're selling that you're gonna beat the hell out of him, become the #1 contender. It made perfect sense and it was logical and it worked. Like this was good. In the context of this was Tony Anthony, like, was he like a kind of a face, a tweener, a heel?
He
seemed more face-like.
Yeah, and I think
just
the
like
match he
more
had
rough.
The match he had the week before, he was in like the face position, so I think he's kind of like a face.
Yeah, but kind of more like an edgy, I guess, or edgy face, like not obviously like a stone cold type, but kind of the face where it's like I'm not going to take any crap type, face. He's not just like a joke.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I thought this was solid. It impressed me with Dirty White Boy's promo ability, and it did make me. It's kind of the theme of this, like what actually sells you on continuing to watch this content or this promotion. And obviously, again, this is studio shows, so you're not actually seeing these matches. But assuming it wasn't, like this is like episodic. Let's say this is setting up a match for like next week. I'd be like, well, I guess I need to watch next week because I actually want to see this Koko B, Ware, Tony, Dirty White Boy match. Like in this different era, of course. So it was more about, I want you to come and pay to come see the Mid-South Coliseum show. Like to see this. And I'd be like, damn, guess I'm gonna go see it on Monday night. Because obviously Monday Night Raw wasn't a thing back then. So it's like, I guess I'll pay like free parking and then go get my ticket to see the.
I think too, like there's something like the GWF, like I think having that roster cohesion, I think because like what like is strong about this is it's a very small roster. But from these two episodes, you kind of understand like the hierarchy of where everyone fits, like card wise with each other. Whereas like the GWF, it was kind of like it was a new promotion, but you kind of didn't have as much of a feel like right away because they didn't. But here it's like, okay, like I get where Dirty White Boy is on like the card versus like someone else. Like he's probably like in your upper mid card. So now this is probably my favorite segment of the show coming up. So this is Tony Falk is introducing the love of his life, his new fiance, Miss Jennifer. And I have to say, I know they did this on purpose, but man, like, is she skeezy?
So hold on, this was actually kind of hilarious because didn't he start off where it's like, I'm going to introduce you to. Like I swear to God, maybe I misheard.
Fiance is what he said.
Oh, he did it from the beginning. I thought he said girlfriend, and then it escalated to fiance.
I was with Matt.
Okay, maybe.
I had to listen to it again, but I thought he was like my girlfriend, Miss Jennifer, and then
wait, it's actually my fiance.
Yeah, and then he was like, oh no, like my fiance, and I was like, wait, didn't you? Like then it's like. You like this moved very quickly, and it I think this was intentional, but I think the intent was to make it seem like what a goofball, like obsessed with this skank
and massively insecure.
Well, if you want to know,
massively insecure that it's like, oh no, actually she's my fiance. Like I love her. Like we're meant to be
no,
together.
you don't. She like adding that extra layer on there to be like, no, nobody be talking to her. She's not just my girlfriend. She's my fiance to the love of my life. Like, don't you be doing nothing.
Well, if you guys want to know where my head was at, so I wrote my notes down here, and I misspelled it, and I wrote finance, so that shows you where my head was at with this segment. But man, like, I was like, I mean, I know what they went for, but I'm like, man, you couldn't even get a Trailer Park 8 for this one. So
well, like you said, I'm pretty sure she was dressed down for this to play into it.
I need to go to the doctor because I know she might not even be alive, and this is like 32 years ago, but I think I might have gotten crabs just from like seeing her. And I mean, like, I hope there's a point, like, so this goes into a tag, and it's Jeff Jarrett and Robert Fuller versus Tony Falk and Doug Masters. And there's a point where Jeff Jarrett kisses her. I'm like, oh, Jeff, you shouldn't have done that. You have AIDS now.
I've watched enough wrestling that the fact that Corey Macklin kept hyping it up and Tony Falk made such a big deal.
Yeah.
And Corey Macklin almost seemed like was a little bit humoring him, where it's like, yeah, she's fine looking there, Tony. Like, yeah, okay, your new fiance, and it's like, okay, I kind of knew, like, oh, okay, like, yeah, and especially like the Corey Macklin, like he got the script where it's like, you had to know, like, oh, she's looking at Jeff Jarrett. I'm like, oh, okay, I know what's coming.
Yeah.
So then, like, Jeff Jarrett like plants a big one on Miss Jennifer, and she's like, first off, she's a horrible actress, but I mean, no offense,
but I mean, she's probably not.
Her to be.
They probably got some local stripper, like someone that like had a look in the crowd and like, got. But there's a funny part. I don't know if it was this segment, but Corey Macklin almost dropped an F-bomb on this segment, and he caught himself. Because he went the "fuh," and he said something else at one point. I'm like, ooh, did you just almost like go the wrong way with that?
Yeah, he caught himself and pivoted really hard.
Yeah, and if you don't know, Corey Macklin died in 2013, I think, in a car crash. Because he's like 21 here.
Dude's got a lot of poise for being 21 and working in TV.
So, like, Lance Russell and Doug Brown are meteorologists. They were weathermen. That's where they got their start. And Macklin was a sports guy. Because that's the thing, like, with them versus, like, announcers on some of these other, like, lower production things. Like, they used TV people, and it comes across. Like, Macklin, I think, is a bit corny, and, like, I was making jokes about... I won't repeat them here. They were a little off color about.
He's not exactly.
He's a little bit
dynamic presence.
He's a little
on
bit
commentary,
try hard, I'd say.
But he's also not like boom goes the dynamite try hard.
No, he
sounds professional.
You can hand him like a sheet of, okay, these are the points you need to hit, and he doesn't do it the best, but he can convey the information that you need him to in a concise and effective manner.
He was a little goofy, but it's unfortunate you said, like, he passed away a while back.
43 years old he was.
So 43 in you said what, 20, was it
2013? Yeah, he was like 21 here.
So yeah, it's like if you look chronologically, like 2013, like go back like 21 years in time, like he died at like 43. So he was like 21, 22 when this was filmed. So it's like he's a kid, and he still did a relatively fine job. Like, can you compare him to people like in the modern era? Like, no, like there are people who are very professional at doing what they do.
I take him as Kevin Kelly.
Yeah, Kevin Kelly.
No, I mean,
how dare you? I'm gonna sue you. I'm gonna sue you. Like,
he was. There were, like, I don't understand with Kevin Kelly, because people people were acting like he's good, and like, no, he's never been good. Like, he was the reason Ring of Honor was unwatchable forever.
I think that's people who have like an anti AEW
No,
agenda.
like
It's
even
like, we have to protect-
even before that, he has fans, and I don't get it. Like, even when Ring of Honor started, like, oh, he's better than he was in WWE, and you turn it on, it's like, no, he's the same.
The fairest thing I could say about Kevin Kelly is that I've heard his commentary, and the people who act as if he is the worst commentator ever, I'm like, no, he isn't. Like, not by far. He's just also not good.
No.
And not someone that it's like I would necessarily like pay money to actually. Now, is he better than some of the guys that they've used like in the last like 10 years in the WWE? It's like, let's hire this like person who did real sports on ESPN of some sort.
Yeah, he's better
And they
than
have
those
no
guys.
knowledge of pro wrestling, so we're going to hire them because it's like we want that pedigree. And then it's like they don't respect or even know anything about pro wrestling, so they flame out in like 3 months. It's like, is he better than them? Like, yeah, he's better than them, but it's like he's not as good as like
I thought that
most anyone. Like even
one,
guys who are like they're more color commentators, but like guys like Daddy Magic in AEW, it's like way better than like Kevin Kelly.
But like, I mean, I think though, like they had one sports guy in WWE that was pretty good, but I think they drove him insane and he flamed out in like 4 months. But I thought he was pretty decent at it, but I can't remember his name. But like, he's better than
Brad.
He's better than Coachman.
Right.
Like, anyone's better.
Yeah.
Chad says it all.
Kevin Kelly's better than Coachman. Okay, like God, how do you?
Coachman's
Low
the
bar.
worst. Coachman's like,
How do you?
The only
How
person
do you be on TV and be that bad? Like, honest to God.
The only person that I've seen that I would consider worse than Coachman is John Tolos on that UWF pay-per-view. He's 20 feet in the air like he's on the top rope. Chill out. I don't even think he's on the top rope. I think he was on the middle rope.
Brad, why do you feel it necessary to hurt me?
I don't know.
I had memory dumped that successfully.
Look,
like that guy was gone out of my brain.
I am going to defend myself. I haven't made you watch a Nails match in like 2 years. It's been longer than 2 years. I think it's almost 3 years I haven't made you watch a Nails match. So you got to give me credit for that.
I want to argue, but I've been hit in the head a lot. I forget things.
It's been almost 3 years, so yeah, give me credit for that. I did make you watch Heroes of Wrestling, though. But I did, in fairness, for Heroes of Wrestling, though, I did subject myself to that. So I did not ask you anything I was unwilling to do myself.
God, that was
That was because I actually just re-listened to that episode, and it's funny because we went into why the Blackjack Brawl was a much better show than Heroes of Wrestling, and I agreed with everything we said, even with both of them like having some distance.
I still wonder.
It actually was.
Yeah.
I watched.
There was one decentish match on
Well,
Heroes of Wrestling.
It was
there was
funny
actually some
bad
entertaining
too.
stuff.
I would watch it again. Like I mean,
Blackjack.
it wouldn't be my top priority, but if like someone was like, "Hey, do you want to do like a live watch of Blackjack Brawl?" I'd be like, "Sure." And if someone said, "Do you want to do a live watch for the show of like Heroes of Wrestling?" Like, absolutely fucking not. Like, I'm not watching that show again. Because there's even a point where you were talking about something and you asked me if I saw it. I'm like, I wasn't rewinding anything on that show, and you guys laughed and were like, "Fair enough."
I still, in my head, I try and say, is like my benchmark for worst match I've seen was
Irish
Hercules
Assassin
versus the Irish Assassin.
It was Samson.
No, Samson.
Yeah.
It was Samson. Like, I still, like, in my head go back to that. I'm like, is it worth, like, that's my bottom rung benchmark.
Well, honestly, like, that's still down there, but that Bushwhackers versus Iron Sheik Nikolai Volkov match, like, really hurt my soul in a way that Irish Assassin and Samson did not. Remember, it got like 9 minutes, and it was just like no one would bump, and like Nikolai was the only one that even like was trying. And remember, like you could just hear like Dutch Mantel die on the inside.
Yeah, because he's like, oh, they're gonna. You know what? Never.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go out, guys. I'm taking a smoke break. I'll be back like Tuesday.
Yeah. This is so Jarrett and Fuller versus Falk and Masters. I think is like a 2 out of 3 falls match or as much TV time as they have. And this gets a decent amount of time. Like I think it gets a good like 10 minutes. And I don't think it's amazing, but it's like it's a good TV match. Like it has some energy to it.
You know what? I agree completely. Like this was, if you're looking for like, what you see even like modern television, it's like this is gonna be like a 4-star AEW Dynamite match. Like no, but it's a perfectly fine TV match.
It's like a 2-star. Like there are worse things I could have done with 10 minutes of my life. But what I liked in this one, so what I really liked though is so this is how you do the face cheating right, in my opinion. So pretty much what the ending is Masters tries to hit Jarrett with a chair. Jarrett gets the chair away from him and then hits him with the chair and pins him. And I was like, that is exactly how face should cheat. Like the heel did it first, and the face did it in retaliation. That is how you do a face cheating properly, because the heel, it was justified. So I was fine with it. Like I said, Jarrett kissed Miss Jennifer, which I hope he got paid extra for that one. And this was fine. This I think kind of matches what happens when you have 2 stars in there with 2 confident, like local-ish guys. And it was a good match. Like no one like really screwed anything up. It was a lot of Jarrett being in peril, and yeah, I thought it was good.
It was good. This was a perfectly fine match.
The problem is like when you get ones like this, I'm just like, God, I'm not saying much about it. Like, well, there's not much to say about it because it was perfectly acceptable wrestling. And I know sometimes people think that's like a backhanded compliment. It's like, no, it's not. Yeah. Like I enjoyed it. It was not bad. It was like, it's nothing I'll remember like 2 months from now, but I've seen far worse for this show. And sometimes like average is average.
Yeah, it wasn't anything dynamic, but the metric is almost, it can be as simple as this. It's like, okay, this is like a 10-minute match, roughly. Will I watch it again? Well, no. Did I waste my 10 minutes of time? Because let's be realistic, if you really want to be like as metaphysical as you possibly can, it's like you only have so many hours and so many minutes and so many days and years in your life. Like, so every minute counts, right?
Yeah.
Like, did I waste this 10 minutes? Is this 10 minutes of my life that I will regret having spent? And like, I wish I had that 10 minutes back. If you were like gun to your head, it's like you have 10 minutes to live. It's like, I wish I had that 10 minutes watching Jarrett, Fuller versus Masters and Tony Fox. Do I regret the 10 minutes? No, it's perfectly fine. Like, it was a fun time that I spent 10 minutes of I don't regret it. Like, there's plenty of times that I've seen matches that it's like, I wish I had that time back. That was boring. I didn't like it. This was it. If you want to do snowflakes, yeah, it's like, it was maybe like a 2-star match. But was it kind of like different and entertaining? It's like, yeah, actually it was. It was perfectly fine. So yeah, people are like, oh, it's back. Maybe it's back in. It's like, no, it's a fine like I spent 10 minutes watching this and I was like, this was kind of entertaining. Yeah. So that's like, it. That's long story short. Like, it's fine.
Yeah. We've seen some real dogs on this show. So like,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
There have been some that I was literally angry at having sat through. Like, I'm never getting that time back. I'm mad about it. Like, the best example I have for that sort of stuff is when I was in high school and I finished reading the Star Wars novel, The Crystal Star.
Oh God!
And when I got done,
the first one.
I read everything at the time. Yeah, it was just the next one in the line for me, and I finished that because at the time I was in this mindset of, I'm going to finish all the books I start, and I finished it and I threw it as hard as I could against the wall. And I was livid that I had spent I was never going to get the time back I had put into reading the garbage words in that garbage book.
You know what's funny about the Crystal Stars? So, when I was really big into Star Wars novels, like was before I was on the internet, and even pre-internet, somehow that book was already notorious pre-internet days for being literally garbage. Like I think it
Yes.
might be
It was the most reviled book
if it's
at the time.
if it's not the I don't know about the new stuff. I think like a lot of the new stuff's bad, but I think up until a point, if it wasn't the worst Star Wars novel, it was the second worst Star Wars novel.
What's the first one?
I think the Bounty Hunter Tales, maybe.
Splinter in a Mind's Eye.
Yeah, that one's bad.
But see, that one's like old, so it's like I'm not gonna.
Crystal. I mean, the
I think
Crystal one's pretty.
Courtship of Princess Leia was pretty
Oh
bad.
yeah,
to
that's
me.
bad.
Yeah,
too.
Courtship of Princess Leia was. They're playing with something that's only vaguely associated with, and I thought it was okay. Like it was like
Some
it
of
didn't-
those.
it wasn't great, but it was not the Crystal Star. God,
Some of those.
like,
Some of those young Jedi ones got kind of ish, but I mean, I don't think anything got as bad as the Crystal Shard. The one Matt mentioned, I think, might be the other worst one. What was the first one you mentioned?
Courtship of Princess Leia.
No, the other one.
Oh, the Bounty Hunter anthologies.
No. The Splinter of the Mind's Eye or something. That
Yeah,
one.
Splinter in the
Splinter in the
Mind's
Mind's
Eye.
That one might be
that
worse.
was like-
but
That was like from the 80s. That was even really before like the expanded.
That was
universe.
that was before like Empire Strikes Back came out or something. But
so-
it
I
takes
don't think
place
it's the-
between the two of them, I think.
Yeah. So I don't
I-
think it's the worst, but I thought that Truce of Bakura was weird. I'm like,
weird, yes, not bad, but weird. But I'm still the Jedi Academy trilogy and Darksaber still sends me just absolute.
Courtship of Princess Leia, I would say, is a bottom 5 book, but I don't think it's worse than Crystal Shard.
No, it's not worse than Crystal Star. It's
Justin, friend of the show, Justin says that Crystal Star was not that bad.
I'm
Okay,
still.
so
I'm gonna totally do an impression of Steve Coogan from The Trip. It's like, well, you're wrong. You're wrong. It's like it's bad.
Look,
It's not that good.
look, he's Canadian, so we kind of just.
Not, I mean, just barely by his own admission from even earlier today. But
I'm from Canada, and they think I'm a little slow, eh?
no,
I start fires.
So the baddie.
God,
It's pretty
just
bad.
God. I'm sent back off on the damn Kevin Anderson books again because
there's
and he edited some of the anthology books. He's like, oh, I'm editing, I better put one in there. It was the most basic ass shit in the whole anthology. I'm like, how in the hell do you do this? How? This is like freshman, sophomore year creative writing level stuff, and you just stuck it in this damn book. What is wrong with you?
Since we've gone down the rabbit hole, Kevin J. Anderson, right?
Yeah.
Did horrible job with like the expanded universe Dune books. But anyway, I think we all agree that in terms of like Star Wars stuff, because he did some Star Wars stuff, if I recall.
I think
that Chuck Wendig is a pretty terrible writer. Like he's not good, right?
Yeah.
I
don't remember what he did.
He's done newer stuff.
Oh,
he did like some of the newer stuff.
Yeah, I haven't read any of it.
I always get him confused with Chuck Tingle because I always laugh when they had the when the sad puppies got a bunch of like stuff nominated for the Nebulas in one of the books. They did legitimate books, but one that got in was a Chuck Tingle book. He does like gay erotica, and one of the books was that got nominated was like Space Raptor Butt Invasion or something. And like the description of the book is hilarious.
I'm impressed by what I'm assuming is a pen name. But
yeah, and his like just the book titles of his stuff is like a sentient sandwich made me gay or something, or like his book titles. They're hilarious.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm trying to throttle down because
Not the Brood Witch, just the sentient sandwich, because the Brood Witch is evil.
Here's another one. If you want to crap on all the Star Wars books,
Brad.
No, that's extra.
Does it have bacon on it?
No, there are not swine evil enough.
You call this a sandwich and there's no bacon on it.
That's extra.
R.A. Salvatore writing a Star Wars book was also a godforsaken
There is no swine evil enough.
Letting him kill Chewie was a mistake.
And he even said that he only did it because he felt like everyone felt too safe in Star Wars. And I'm just like, I heard that and I was like, you know what, Salvatore? You can kiss the end of my fist right there, because that is some hack shit. Is what that is.
His Drizzt books are good though.
I haven't read any of them. You know what? I have not felt compelled.
They're pretty good. People would think, you kind of think he's going to be a Mary Sue at first, and he does have like flaws as like a character, namely being kind of naive and dumb.
Still,
and they're pretty quick reads. I'm reading Game of Thrones right now. I might do one of those as a cleanser between goes.
Wiener, 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 floppy wiener.
He's never gonna finish. George R.R. Martin's never gonna finish that. So
no, he's not.
Hey, what is your what's your conspiracy theory about that?
Okay, so here's okay. So I have a couple. Okay, so the most likely one and the non-fun one is he's a lazy piece of crap, and he just has easier things to do that gets him more admiration than sitting at his typewriter and finish it. Now, my other conspiracy theory is, so, and this is known, and I talk about this a lot, so he is not like, there are different types of ways people write. Some people write copious notes, like Robert Jordan had like a plan, he had like outlines he went to, and when he started, his health started failing, he outlined it more so that someone could finish it. But so George R.R. Martin is more of like a free-form exploratory writer. So Martin doesn't plan. He just kind of goes with the flow and where it takes him. And it's a valid way to write. But I think what happened to him, in my opinion, is the story got too big and it got out of his hands and he doesn't know how to finish it. And I think he might have been thinking of going with what the show was going to do, and then it went over so poorly, like he doesn't know how to rebound off of it.
So here's my conspiracy theory. I may have said this before. I don't remember. He is an exploratory writer. He'll get there however he gets there as he's doing it. But he knew what he was working towards. Like someone without realizing it figured out the Hodor thing. And he already knew where that came from. Okay, so he's got some stuff already figured out, even if he's not like Robert Jordan or Brandon Sanderson making a bunch of notes and outlines and stuff. The end of the show was where he wanted it to end up. Even if D&D, like, obviously they totally botched the entire thing. That's 100% clear, but that's where he wanted the show to end up, and since everybody hates it, now he doesn't know what to do, and so he's not writing anything, because he's like, well, now I don't know how to finish it, and if I don't ever actually finish it, then people can't be mad at me for an ending they hate.
I heard a great conspiracy about this just last week. It was on a stream. And
Did I say it back then?
No, this is a brand new one, and I think it'd be hilarious, but so someone threw the idea out that he's actually finished it, but he knows it's not going to go over well, and he's being a pussy, and what he's going to do is he has it done, and then he's going to release it after he dies so he doesn't have to deal with the actual backlash.
You mean to tell me that he actually finished 2 books, and then he's just going to sit on them?
Yes.
I actually don't think that's the craziest thing. I actually thought like maybe that's I
feel like it's in character for him as a person to a degree.
My personal theory, well, because he's got stuff, and it's like, oh, like who can like finish a book when all the threat of fascism nowadays. It's like, what? Like,
Yeah.
dude, you write like dumb fantasy novels. Like, come on.
And it didn't stop him from writing the stuff for Elden Ring.
Yeah. Look, he writes very slowly. Game of Thrones like blew up because the HBO show was like massive. I think what happened is like because it's a show that even though it went for like 7 seasons,
8,
like eight, okay, it still like went longer than like it took him to finish the dumb books. I personally, because he was involved with like the actual writing of the show, I personally think like the ending of the show was actually what he intended. I think he outlined everything, and he didn't like it wasn't like the box of the book series wasn't finished, but I think he like outlined it, and the reaction, maybe not to the detail where it's like they did everything exact. Maybe they filled in some gaps, but basically the horrible reaction people had, like that actually the ending was what he wanted it to be. And then when there was this huge backlash, he was like, "Oh, like huddla," like, and he doesn't know how to finish it. But I also think it's like, dude, just do what people wanted. Where it's like, Jon Snow is the king of everything. People will be fine with that.
Yeah.
But I'm almost kind of that opinion that it's like maybe he's just like letting the stink of everything die down for a bit. And I haven't seen it yet. I do want to watch it, but from what I understand, they've done 2 seasons of House of Dragon. I think it's been renewed for like 3rd, and that's been well received. It's a prequel series, obviously. But I've wondered, it's like,
I heard they made a mistake at the end of
actually finished.
I heard they made a mistake at the end of season 2 that people generally didn't like, but I don't think it was showrunning. I think it was just like a bit of a misstep. But generally, it's been well received.
I don't know.
Season 1 was good and season 2 wasn't, but
I'm
not
defenses of season
watching
2.
it.
I think the other thing is, and this is less conspiratorial, and I think much closer to the truth, is the show made him completely rich, and I think he just doesn't have the drive to, because writing's hard work. It's thankless, it's difficult, and I think he just doesn't have like the drive to do it.
The dude made it. You know, now he toiled away as a nobody writer for a long time, and then his stuff took off. So he made it. Good for him. But there's a certain contempt for audience that bugs me about it. It's like, you know, don't leave it hanging because you're being indecisive. Don't leave it hanging because you're like, oh no, people don't like my vision. It's like, no, that was a gift. If my theory that Matt and I are, I think, on the same page for, if that one's right, then it's like they did you a wonderful service, because that means that you know full well that at the end game, the thing that you were going to do, people hate, and so you have an opportunity to not do that and do something else, and you know it will look great by comparison. So just do it, man. Just. You've got enough money now where there's not pressure. So write without the pressure. Just get it done. Your editors are not going to say jack shit to you now. Just get it done. Just finish the story.
you know what was hilarious to me is so when Walking Dead ended, it was hilarious because people were surprised. And like, it just shows how people don't remember stuff. But Robert Kirkman had always said early on that when Rick died, that was the end of Walking Dead. It was always going to end when Rick died. And then Rick died and he ended and people were shocked. I'm like, he said for like 15 years that if Rick dies, the series is going to end. And that's what he did. But people don't like read.
I mean, that's your point of view character.
Yeah, because people are like, oh, well, Carl could take over. It's like, no, it's Rick's story.
Yeah.
Yeah, to go back, I still kind of think like what he outlined and what we actually saw was like that was actually, and then people were like, this is bullshit, like this is dumb. And then I think like backpedaled, and then the conspiracy to me is like, has he actually finished it? And he's like letting the stink of that wear off, and then But then part of me is like, well, he's actually lazy, so it's like I think I kind of agree with you, Brad. It's like he's made enough money. It's like I don't need to finish this.
And he's written
But
other
sometimes I
stuff
think
too. I think it's just like I think he's found new toys that distract him and like other stuff, and there's always like a reason not to do it. And then I don't know, like him saying like, well, there's fascism and stuff. It's like, come on, dude. Like,
I think that's an excuse. I threw it out there because that isn't actually a real thing that he said. But I think it's just like you're just making up excuses now
well,
for why you haven't finished a book.
it's like
When
if
the
you're,
TV show
it's
has
well,
ended like 5 years ago.
it's like, and with stuff like that too, it's like you're an old man, and it's like even if that was a problem, like what are you gonna do about it? Like you're gonna waste like your last 8 to 20 years of your life worrying about something that like literally you can do nothing about.
He literally could have finished it by now. Like he could just write where it's like again the feel good thing where it's like, oh, Jon Snow was actually like the one who's supposed to, he's the king. And people will be like, yeah, that's what we wanted. Okay, yeah, we're good. Like I was actually just thinking, my daughter in like a little over a month is turning 5. And Game of Thrones ended before she was born. So that was, at this point, 5 to 5+ years ago.
Well, the last
So it's like,
books,
dude, like you should have finished this by now. Like I could have finished this if I
wasn't
was writing this.
didn't the last book come out the same year as Skyrim?
I don't know.
It's
like at least a decade in the past.
Yeah.
He's not
It's
finishing
funny.
it, I don't think.
It's funny because we went from this being a cultural phenomenon.
Someone get Sanderson on the phone.
Yeah, Sanderson won't do it. From being a cultural phenomenon to, I mean, after that last season, just dropping off the radar entirely. Kind of like with what happened with How I Met Your Mother. They screwed the ending, and now nobody cares anymore. Both of them were a big deal for people. You botched the landing so badly that nobody gives a damn anymore. And
yeah, I think
on one hand, that's really impressive, and then on the other hand, it's like,
and
I'm blown away by just how tone deaf the decision is.
And what's crashing down that pipeline is already like seeing that happen is Star Wars. Like, because that Outlaw game only sold 1 million copies, and like Ubisoft is like in serious trouble because it didn't do well. And could you imagine like a Star Wars game not doing well like a decade ago?
Well, that's Star Wars in general.
Or
Like,
could you imagine a Star Wars movie coming out and questioning how well it's going to do?
I've said this before. Like, if you had told me like 10 years ago, 15 for sure, but 10 years ago, it's like there's going to be a bunch of new Star Wars content, I'd be like, oh, okay. Like, oh, you mean like, because it's been around that long, probably. Like, oh, you mean like animated stuff like the Clone Wars or like new books? And it's like, no, dude. Like live action stuff. I would have been like, live action? Like, whoa. Here it is, like less than a decade after Disney took over Star Wars. And my attitude is like, I don't want it. Like, I please stop. Please stop making content. I don't want it. I don't want video games. I don't want TV shows. I'm good. I'm good.
I don't want comics. I just
Yeah, I don't need it. I'm good. Like let it die off for a bit.
They need to,
or at least hire like or hire competent people. But I also don't need I said it in the show before. It's like, okay, Mandalorian, the first couple seasons were pretty good.
The first season,
it's like, okay,
the first season was fine because it was like a standalone thing, but then they saw it was popular and they started trying to tie him into the rest of the universe, and it immediately started falling apart.
Yeah. Oh no, I've talked on this show before about how like season 2 like angered me in several ways, because that was how they backdoored like greenlighting the Ahsoka TV show and other stuff. But I agree with you. Like I didn't like how they did stuff, but that was successful when the films like shat the bed essentially. And what was the solution? What did Disney take away from that? It's like, oh, you guys like Mandalorian? It's like, yeah, it's pretty good. We liked it. Oh, okay. We're gonna give you 20 new shows and some more movies. And it's like,
Yeah, my favorite
no,
meme about it was the
please
UHF.
no, please no. What's that?
My favorite meme someone did about it was the UHF. You get the fire hose. And it was so
I don't
accurate.
want it. I don't want it. Yeah.
And like they screwed the Obi-Wan show up, and they like bring the original actors back, and they screw. It's just they just need someone with vision, because like the problem is like Dave Filoni is like the head of creative now, and he's like the problem with him is like with the Ahsoka thing, like he just wants to play with his toys. And like it ruins it, because it's like you're not gonna have anything bad happen to Ahsoka because you have like an unhealthy attachment to this character.
The problem, there's two problems with this, with it. It's one, the first problem, the overarching problem, is that Disney is a company that wants both a return on investment for the money they spent on buying the Star Wars franchise, and they also want to make even more buckets of money putting out as much Star Wars content as they possibly can. Okay, so they're in the process of, they want just a content mill doing this. That's problem number one. It's like you're just churning out content. But the second part of that problem, because that's the overarching problem, that's a big problem. The second problem is that you're putting people who either don't appreciate the source material or are not competent to actually write good material for the content you're producing, or both. And so that like basically makes the entire everything crap. So it's like you're putting out a ton of stuff, but it's also crap because the people you're hiring is not good. And I know there's lots of people who like they'll do like YouTube videos and thought pieces and etc., where it's like, oh, it's crap because it's too woke or whatever, like whatever the complaint du jour is. It's like, my complaint is like, it's just not really good. It's not well written. It's not well acted. You're predominantly, you're churning stuff out. That's your concern. Let's churn out as much content as we can, versus like, let's actually take a step back and put out high quality stuff. They've been doing the same thing with the Marvel stuff for a while.
Marvel's trying to course correct at least. But what I think's different though.
Let me say this, finish. Like Marvel at least is a higher quality, but they've also fallen. The quality has fallen down too, and they also are in the same boat of like content milk churning out stuff. It's just that their quality is a little better, so it's like they can kind of get away with it to an extent.
They have a better leader, because I think that's where Lucasfilm's in trouble. So I think the problem is Kathleen Kennedy's a really terrible leader, and there's a lot of reasons for that. She's too reactionary. Yeah. So like the fact that like one movie did bad and they've been afraid to put a theatrical movie out for like 6 or 7 years now. The fact that one TV show did well, so they leaned too heavy into that. But then her other problem is like she hires flavor of the month. Like she hires Patty Jenkins after Wonder Woman. Then Wonder Woman 84 bombs. So then they panic cancel that because, well, her thing failed. And she's done that repeatedly with like flavor of the month directors. But then they like I say 75% of what they announce too early, then they cancel it. So now people are just like, well, I'm never going to see that, so why do I care? But then I think where their biggest problem is they don't have anyone with vision. So like Kevin Feige has caused Marvel a lot of issues, but it also worked for a while because he had an overarching vision. And you need that, but like Kathleen Kennedy's not a creative, and Dave Filoni only cares about his toys. There's no one that has like an idea, so you have all these directors coming in that don't really have any direction, and like there's like nothing to build around, and then they don't really have any creativity, so they're always stuck in the Skywalker box. So they're always iterating on like the same movies over and over again, trying to fill in all these little spaces, just creating more issues, and then you're even more constrained because you don't really have a story to tell because the characters have to end up in a certain point by the end of it. And it's just the problem. Like I think they have to, at some point they have to venture off and do their own thing. And I think they will remake the original 3 well before they ever do something original with it.
I don't know.
And
Again,
I think Disney
it's just not
also
good.
is a problem because I think Disney makes you test audience things to death. And it's also like, well, you need to have stuff we can merchandise in it, which I mean Lucas did, but I think Disney's even like worse about that. So then you have to deal with all that stuff. Like a good example of what ruined The Mandalorian is they pretty much wrote Baby Yoda off, but then Disney wanted more merchandising, so they brought him back, and it made no sense.
Yeah. Well, it's also it's dumb because I mean I've talked to like friends of the show, like Damien and Chris, and because I watched like between season 2 and season 3 of The Mandalorian. And I think actually you said like they're not doing movies, that they're doing like a Mandalorian movie.
Yeah, that's supposed to like finish it, I think. I think
Well, no, I think they're doing season 4 of Mandalorian, but season 3 between season 2 and season 3, like season 2, Baby Yoda, aka Grogu, like left
he's Baby Yoda.
Mandalorian.
Grogu's a stupid name.
Yeah. And season 3, he's back. They're back together. And I remember like texting with like Damien and them and Chris, and I'm like, when the hell did this happen? And I was told like, oh, you needed to watch like Boba Fett, the Boba Fett TV show. And I'm like, I haven't done that. Like, I don't know when I'm ever going to do that. Maybe never. Like, I needed to watch this to know. And it's like, that's dumb. Like, I understand you're trying to justify content, but
I think
I haven't done that. So what do you tell? How am I supposed to thread the needle there? And they don't do a good job of it. And this is what I'm going to. It's like, forget like people, because again, even our friend like Tim, love the guy, but it's like, let me do how like, oh, Disney's like gone woke, whatever. It's like, I'm not entering a political argument. I'm just like, this is just bad storytelling. Season 2, season 3, there's a gap and something happened. Then now like the two of them are together. You haven't explained it to me except like, well, you had to watch this other content. It's like, okay, but I didn't. So how are you actually like narratively telling me how that happened?
I shouldn't have to do homework.
No, we're not. You have to watch that content. It's like, what? No, I'm not doing that. I haven't done that. I don't need to watch like a 10-episode season of a show that I don't necessarily have time for. Why don't you just like Cliff Notes this? I know it's dumb, but it's like, it's just bad writing.
You should never have to do homework.
It's just not good.
You should never have to do homework to go, because remember, it never works. Remember, the last Matrix movie, like there was a part of it that made no sense, and you had to watch some anime that had come out like a couple months earlier.
I'm not doing that. Like,
that was the problem with like the Marvels. Like the characters they introduced were in like 3 different TV shows. Like for all the elements that they introduced, like it's just a problem.
You had to have seen the Captain Marvel movie. You had to have watched like
Miss Marvel and WandaVision.
WandaVision and Miss Marvel. And it's like,
Secret
what
Invasion,
if I had?
You had to watch some of.
Oh, is that part of it too?
I think so.
Okay, what if I had? And I didn't. So.
And I mean, they unironically ripped off the plot of Spaceballs. Because they had the Mega Maid like thing. Okay, so then there is one last segment. It's a Pritchard promo with his feud with Masters, and they show stuff. We get more spanking of women because I don't know why that was a thing, but that's the end of it. We've done our Star Wars. Like I don't know the way they I think the other problem I have with the Star Wars TV shows, just as an aside, is the way Disney writes a lot of their TV shows is they take a movie story and they don't like adapt it for TV. They just make it an 8-hour movie. Is I think the problem I have with a lot of their TV shows. And they, you know what's funny is that Willow TV show doesn't exist anymore. They just nuked it. So this was the USWA. I had a lot of fun with both episodes. Like I said, like it was a good introduction. Like I'm pretty invested to like move on to more episodes.
I'm sorry. I am totally burned out right now, so I
It's
don't have a
okay.
whole lot more to add.
There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on, so
Yeah, I love these 2 episodes. I would watch more of the show, to be quite honest with you.
good thing because we
This is
are.
not. This is not quite. It is both better and not as. I recall, like, I'm kind of reminiscent of like a few at this point a few years back before it all went to crap with the pandemic. But when NWA Power was like, I was really into NWA Power
We
because I
all
was in
were.
the studio show and everything. And then well, many things happened. Cornette left. Was it Dave Lagana? Like,
Yeah, Dave Lagana
he,
got exposed as a sex pest
me
during like the
too. Yeah. And so
lockdowns, and
he was gone. And then the pandemic like decimated the roster.
then
And then
Billy
Billy
Pumpkin.
Pumpkins
Yeah.
kind of went crazy, but or crazier.
Well, I
But
remember we reviewed like a lot of the early pay-per-views, and I remember, I don't remember what episode it was on, but I remember, I think Matt and I at least, and I think Shad might have agreed with us, but we were talking about how, because AEW started like almost exactly the same time, we were talking about how they handled the storytelling a lot better in the NWA, and boy did
yeah,
that fall apart, because we did
that
like
fell apart.
we did Into the Fire, and then we did Hard Times. I think we gave Hard Times like a really strong
It was
like
good.
recommend.
So this kind of reminded me a little bit of that. But I did feel this was also a little bit stronger just because like the Moondogs Jarrett Fuller feud was, I felt, a little bit more exciting than the stuff we saw at NWA Power, even though NWA Power was probably like the overall that from cover to cover it was better. Then it fell apart. But it did make me excited. I like this a lot. Like I would absolutely watch more of it. And I'm excited for us to watch more of it. But
Yeah.
this was good. I thought this is well worth like the time invested in it.
Yeah, I think we'll stick to 2 episodes at least to start with. If we start having trouble with it, we'll go down to 1. But I think 2 episodes is kind of manageable. Because they're kind of easy watches. Like this is all. I have links on this in the show notes. This is on a playlist that we're watching it off of. It's on a playlist. Just go to the guy's channel that I have linked. He has it on a playlist. It's all there. It'll play through all of them. It's an easy watch. I recommend it. It's a fun time. So that has been the show for this week. I don't know what we're gonna do next week. So I've been slacking. We've all like I've had a lot going on. I think we've all had a lot going on. So that is it for this week, though. Thank you for watching as always, and we will catch you next time.